Chapter 3872. When Jing Anan heard this, she was dumbfounded. She felt that Jiang Wenjing would do something to Jiang Lin. She was prepared. If Jiang Wenjing dared to do such a thing, he would definitely not be able to escape punishment. Moreover, Jiang Wenjing ate her spiced dishes every day. In the long run, his body would definitely have all kinds of problems. If he harmed Jiang Lin, he would spend the rest of his life in prison. If he didn't harm Jiang Lin, he would spend the rest of his life in the hospital. He had never imagined that things would turn out this way. Jiang Wenjing was seriously burned and was still in the intensive care unit. Jiang Lin was better. Perhaps the other half of her body did not have any intuition. At that time, she tried to hide the part that could feel her body in Jiang Wenjing's arms. It was not very serious, and the part that could not feel any pain. Tongzi, go and spread rumors that Jiang Lin and Jiang Wenjing are true love. The CEO of Jiang Corporation was burned in order to save his true love. Also, post some solid evidence. Okay, host. Tangwa believed that Jing Anan would know what to do after seeing this. Jiang Wenjing was burned in order to save his true love, Jiang Lin. As soon as this news came out, it instantly shocked everyone. Some people had been to the scene and talked with others. At that time, they saw that Jiang Lin was indeed tightly protected in Jiang Wenjing's arms. For a moment, the internet was sighing. This was a fairy love, right? Jiang Wenjing and Jing Anan were legally married, and people couldn't help but wonder what secrets there were. When Jing Anan saw these news, she pondered in her heart. It should be Miss Tang, right? Other than Miss Tang, she couldn't think of anyone else who could do this. Jing Anan looked at the solid evidence and felt that it wasn't shocking enough. She secretly posted the old videos of Jiang Lin and Jiang Wenjing. The internet seemed to explode. When they discussed Jiang Wenjing and Jiang Lin's fairy love, many netizens also realized that they were having an affair. Some people praised them, and some people mocked them. Under the expectations of thousands of netizens, Jing Anan spoke. She didn't blame anyone.
She only said one thing.
She wanted to divorce Jiang Wenjing and let Jiang Wenjing and Jiang Lin be together. Jing Anan's attitude made people speculate. Many people were especially interested in the feud between rich and powerful families. For an entire month, this matter was discussed. Jiang Wenjing was out of danger, but his burns were too serious. To put it bluntly, like Jiang Lin, he could only spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. After his condition stabilized, Jing Anan sat by the bed and announced a decision in front of him and Jiang Lin. Zheng, let's get a divorce. Through this incident, I know how much you love Lin Lin. I think I should fulfill your wish and let you two be together. No matter what, the two of you should be together and be together openly. After we get divorced, you can get married. Of course, Jiang Wenjing didn't agree, but at this time, it was not up to him to agree or not. Jing Anan was very strong. After spending some time and energy, she divorced Jiang Wenjing. After the divorce, she let the two of them get married, and seemed to have gotten over it. From then on, Jiang Wenjing and Jiang Lin lived in the same room. Since Jiang Wenjing was disabled, the company was naturally managed by Jing Anan. Jing An and became the head of the Jiang Group and successfully turned the Jiang Group into her possession. Xiao Yang went from being Jiang Wenjing's assistant to Jing Anan. Because she was smart and quick-witted, she judged the situation and abandoned the dark for the light and became Jing Anan's second secretary. She sighed secretly in her heart. In this line of work, she had to learn to read the situation. Although she couldn't be the first secretary in this life, it was not bad to be the second secretary. Xiao Yang entered the office and gave the documents to Jing Anan to deal with. Then she left. When she returned to the office, many people came to ask for gossip. Xiao Yang coughed softly. Work hard, don't gossip. President Jing is not so easy to fool. Only by doing practical things will he appreciate it. Chapter 3873. However, she was also curious about the relationship between Mr. Jing and Mr. Ming. Mr. Ming and Mr. Jing looked at each other with gentle eyes. Xiao Yang was actually very afraid of Jing Anan. Some things were very scary after thinking about it for a while. The best way was to play dumb. Jiang Wenzheng and Jiang Lin glared at each other in the room every day and fought with each other. Especially Jiang Lin. She didn't care who the opponent was. She would bite if she couldn't win. Jiang Wenjing's wounds were all caused by Jiang Lin. The reason why Jiang Lin didn't oppose the marriage was that she thought it was the only way to torture Jiang Wenjing. She hated this man. He wanted her life, so she wanted Jiang Wenjing to live a life worse than death. Looking at Jiang Wenjing's ugly appearance, she was very happy. When Jing Enan became the head of the Jiang group and truly owned the Jiang group, Jiang Lin understood what was going on. Her sister was really not simple. She was hateful, but she had no other choice. Of course, she still had a little hope in her heart, which was Tanggua. If Tanggua's special medicine came out, she might be able to stand up. No matter what, Jing Enan was her sister. She hated Jiang Wenzheng and tortured him. She wouldn't kill her sister, right? Tanggua came to see Jiang Lin again. Seeing Jiang Lin and Jiang Wenjing showing the same ferocious expression, she couldn't help but smile. When are you getting married? Yes, Tanggua came to see Jing Enan. It had been more than a year since the fire. Jing Enan accepted Ming Huan's pursuit and became boyfriend and girlfriend. October. Jing Enan said in front of him. Jiang Wenjing and Jiang Lin were also quiet. Marriage? With whom? October, it's a good day. Tanggua replied. Jiang Wenjing and Jiang Lin soon found out who Jing Enan's boyfriend was. It was Ming Huan. Jiang Wenjing certainly didn't agree, but no matter how he shouted, no one paid attention to him. The helpers Jing Enan hired for them were not locals. They were responsible and didn't know the local language. They basically took care of their daily life. After we get married, I'll move out. I already have my own family. It's not good to live together. Jing Enan said to the two of them. You're already married, so live well. Jing Enan smiled at the two of them. You have to cherish this hard-won marriage. Zheng risked his life for it. From the beginning to the end, Jing Enan did not reveal a fierce expression, making it difficult for others to find fault. Jiang Wenjing cursed madly, but Jiang Lin calmed down and looked at Jiang Wenjing with a mocking gaze. When Yi Lian found out about Jing Enan's wedding plans, he immediately applied for leave and prepared a very romantic proposal. After Jing Enan got married, she and Ming Huan moved to the villa next door. Every day, she would come to see Jiang Wenjing and Jiang Lin. When the helpers were not around, they would fight fiercely. Tanggua also came occasionally. She mainly came to see Jiang Wenjing's miserable appearance. Jiang Wenjing's face was burned and disfigured, and now there were all kinds of big and small bite wounds on his body. His life was not good. Jiang Lin had been hoping that Tanggua would give her special medicine, but she waited for a lifetime, but she didn't get it. Later, the things between Jiang Wenjing and Jiang Lin were often mentioned. Some people said that they were in true love, and some said that they were shameless. But except for a few insiders, who would have thought that this was a pair of enemies who couldn't wait to kill each other and tortured each other every day. Jiang Wenjing watched Jing Enan get married, be in love with Ming Huan, and even have a child later. He was so angry that he fell ill several times. His body was not healthy, and later, because of his health problems, he suffered a lot. Dr. Yi, don't you think my daughter is cute? Are you jealous? Ming Huan said with a smug face, holding a 2-year-old girl in his arms and a cute little boy standing beside him. Yi Lian nodded lightly. She's very cute. Come on, don't force yourself. Ming Huan sighed, not believing it at all. Chapter 38-74. Who doesn't know that you don't like children at all? My daughter is so cute. Anyone who really likes children would have come over to hug her. Who would be as polite and disdainful as you? You're a house husband. You didn't ask me out today just to chat with me, did you? Of course, Ming Huan wasn't a real house husband. He just didn't want Jing Enan to worry too much and shoulder the responsibility of taking care of the child. It wasn't easy to marry his wife. Of course, he had to pamper her. How could he bear to let her suffer a little? Actually, for so many years, I've had a doubt, Ming Huan said. It's about your husband and the Jiang family. The Jiang family's affairs were strange. It was as if there was an invisible hand pushing them away. They didn't do anything, but no one in the Jiang family was left alive. All of them didn't end up well. Young Master Ming, have you been taking care of the child at home for too long? Yi Lian asked. This isn't a good sign. You're actually suffering from this kind of paranoid disease. When your wife comes back, do you have to smell if there's a man's cigarette smell on her?
Get lost.
Mayan and only likes me. She wouldn't do such a thing. I don't suspect her. Ming Huan was angry.
Don't slander me.
You'd better control your husband. I heard that the nurses in your hospital are looking forward to your divorce every day so that they can get married. If this was in ancient times, your husband might be able to take in concubines. Don't go too far. Yi Lian hated hearing this. Every time his wife came over, those nurses would be starry-eyed. Even after getting married, they wouldn't let him have peace. Now, he was already looking forward to the day of retirement. Young Master Ming, do you think you're happy now? Of course. Yi Lian said again. Since you're living a happy life, why do you have to explore some uncertain secrets? Is it because your wife isn't fragrant, your child isn't cute, and your life isn't good? Do you want to die? Sai, you're right. Forget it. Forget it. Let's not delve into these things. I'd better think about when the family can go on a trip and relax. To be honest, Ming Huan was both curious and afraid. Since the peace now was what Anan wanted, then he wouldn't touch it. After that, Ming Huan no longer tried to explore the secrets of Anan. He was already very satisfied with the happiness he had now and cherished it very much. In this life, Tang Guo lived to the age of 50. Although her lifespan was not long, she was not a short-lived ghost. When her doctor Yi found out that she didn't have much time left, he was unhappy for a few days. During those few days, other than accompanying her, he had been hiding in the study to read. Dr. Yi said that he had saved countless people for most of his life. He had pulled many people back from the hands of the Grim Reaper, but in the end, he was unable to capture the most important person to him. This made him very upset. For the first time, he doubted his medical skills. During those few days, I flipped through all the books I could in the study to see if there was anything I missed out on. I feel that I must have missed something, and that's why I can't even save you. Yi Lian said dejectedly. Tangwa gripped his hand tightly and said, As long as one is human, there will always be a time when one leaves this world. Humans were made of flesh and blood. With the current medical skills and technology, there was no way to make humans immortal. You're already very good. You're a very good doctor and have saved many people. Xiaogua, a lifetime is too short. Yi Lian held Tangwa's hand and kissed the back of her hand. If there's a next life, can you live a little longer? It's just a few decades. It feels like it'll be gone in the blink of an eye. I'll try my best. This depended on which world she transmigrated to, what identity she had, and how long the original owner had lived. Yi Lian was very satisfied. He reluctantly watched as Tangwa closed her eyes. This time, Yi Lian did not leave with Tangwa. After Tangwa left, he devoted himself to researching the illness that she had. Many years later, under Yi Lian's research, the illness that Tangwa had in the past was discovered early on and cured by a very good method. On the day that he was awarded the highest honor, Yi Lian's life stopped. He didn't even have time to walk on that huge stage. He left so hurriedly without any reluctance. Chapter 3875. Did the new person who joined the group today say anything? Qi Xiao. There's no movement. Did nothing happen to them? They didn't accept the red packets we sent. Margaret. She appeared silently. If it wasn't for Youngest sharp eyes, I wouldn't have noticed that there was an additional person in the group. Shangguan Yungu. From her name, it can be inferred that she is older. Perhaps she hasn't figured out what this is. Ziyun and the others only recently discovered that there was an additional person in the group. The main reason was that the other party was silent. They didn't know when she appeared. If she didn't speak and didn't snatch red packets, it was almost the same as being dead. After discovering that the other party appeared, the people in the group started discussing. They also used various methods to make the other party communicate with them, but it was all in vain. Mo Yuntian, her name didn't turn gray, so she should be alive. Margaret, then why isn't she saying anything? It's been so many days. She should have figured it out, right? Does she think this is a dream? Shangguan Yungu. Seniors, look, her name is the Empress Dowager. You should know the identity of the Empress Dowager, right? Margaret, I know. I didn't know before, but after communicating with everyone, I know that the Empress Dowager has a supreme status in some worlds. She is very respected in a country. Shangguan Yungu. The palace is the most complicated place. Maybe she is busy with all kinds of conspiracies and didn't notice this group. Maybe she found out and is suspicious, so she doesn't dare to use it for the time being. Maybe she's not in a good situation. In short, I guess she must have seen us talking. The biggest possibility is that she is suspicious and doesn't trust uncertain things. That's why she didn't use it and didn't dare to click on our red packets. Hyun. Then what should we do? Wait until she feels that there is no danger and then speak. I don't know how long she has been in the group. I think this group should be improved a little. When new members come in, they don't even remind us. Although there are many new functions in the last upgrade, it's not good if we don't remind this new member. What do you think? Chi Xiao. It should be improved. In the future, when new members come in, it will be more convenient to remind the group that there is a new member. Mo Yuntian. I agree. Margaret, I agree. Emmanuel. If the campus belle is here, she might be able to get the newbie to talk. But for now, let's just chat as usual. If the newbie feels safe, she should pay attention to us. Margaret, I wonder if the campus belle's new world this time is a magical world. Alan, Margaret, even if it's a magical world, it might not be your magical world. It might be Harold's and my magical world. I think you should go back and pray to the God of creation and ask him to be merciful to you. Harold. This time, Alan doesn't sound so annoying. Margaret, you two are despicable. Zin, I wonder when the girl will arrive in the new world. Mo Yuntian. It should be soon. We have to pay more attention to the list of members in the future. I don't know when the newcomers will speak. Ziyun and the others had guessed correctly. The new member had noticed the situation in the group from the very beginning. She didn't say anything at first because she felt that there was a conspiracy. Later on, she didn't quite understand it. When she understood, she didn't know what to say. In her current situation, it was meaningless to say anything, even if she was the Empress Dowager. Chapter 3876. Master, then I'll go down the mountain first. When I come back, I'll bring you delicious food. In front of Tangwa stood a young girl in red. Although her appearance was not devastatingly beautiful, she was still playful and cute, with a bit of naivety in her expression. The young girl was barefoot, and there was a bell on each of her ankles. When she moved slightly, it would make a ringing sound. It was unknown what the bell was made of, but the sound it made was very pleasant as the young girl's voice. On the young girl's wrist, there were some good-looking bracelets. She looked a bit seductive, and one could tell at a glance that she was not a lady from a noble family. When Tangwa was about to speak, the young girl interrupted her and stuck out her tongue at her. Master, don't nag. I remember that the thing I shouldn't do when I go down the mountain is not to trust men, right? Master said that men are all bad things, and none of them are good. Ling, I will not be deceived. I won't believe the flowery words of those stinky men. In the past, when I went down the mountain, those bad things dared to come and make trouble for me, but they were all dealt with by me. Master, you don't know. They were tortured by me until they jumped up and down. They were so ugly, but they still dared to provoke me. Don't they know who I am? I'm the young palace master of Luo Hua Palace, Wan Qianling. They dared to provoke me. Aren't they afraid of losing their lives? Tangwa secretly pondered these words. The original owner hated men. The young girl in front of her was called Wan Qianling, and she claimed to be the young palace master of Luo Hua Palace. Then, the original owner should be the palace master of Luo Hua Palace. She glanced at the skin on her hand. It was so delicate that it could be broken by a blow. With this skin, she looked very young. It seemed that she was not an old woman. If her body could be younger, she preferred to be younger. When she was old, she was indeed not so beautiful. She did not even want to look in the mirror. System. Her bad habit of showing off. Okay, you go. Go, and come back early. Okay, master. You're so quiet this time. Wan Qianling looked at Tangguo with a smile. Linga will go first. She was afraid that if she did not slip away, her master might nag a lot later. Speaking of which, this master of hers was very cold and fierce in front of outsiders. No one knew that when there were only the two of them, their master was a talkative person, completely lacking the dignity of the Falling Flowers Palace's palace master. Her master had said that all men in the world were bad things. They were the best at using flowery words to deceive a girl's feelings. Every time she went down the mountain, he would remind her to stay for at least an hour before letting her go down the mountain. She had heard it so many times that calluses had formed in her ears. After going down the mountain so many times, she did meet a lot of stinky men, but they were all dealt with by her. Therefore, in the martial arts world, everyone called her Demoness Qianling and said that she was a bad person. She just couldn't stand those bad men. Occasionally, she would use a little trick to punish them. She did not care about how the people of Jianghu judged her. People in the martial arts world said that her master was a demoness and called her a demoness. She felt that this title was very appropriate. Thinking of going down the mountain, Wan Qianling put away all her thoughts. What she liked to do the most after going down the mountain was to mingle with the people of Jianghu and watch them fight. Occasionally, she would interfere and cause some destruction. She felt that it was very fun to watch them stomp their feet in anger. Anyway, they were all competitive. It did not seem to be against the rules for her to interfere in the middle, right? After Wan Qianling left, Tangguo's room was temporarily empty. She began to accept the memories of this world. Chapter 3877. Just as she had guessed, she was the palace master of the Falling Flower Palace. Wan Qianling was the young palace master and her disciple. The reason why he treated Wan Qianling differently was because of her identity. Wan Qianling was actually her senior sister Wan Feng's daughter. Ever since she entered the Falling Flower Palace, senior sister Wan Feng had taken care of her. The relationship between the two had always been good. Later on, Wan Feng fell in love with a man. Because of this man, she fell into a dangerous situation and risked her life to give birth to her daughter, Wan Feng. Then, she passed away. Because of Wan Feng's experience, the original owner felt that all men were bad and heartless. After taking care of Wan Qianling at the same time, she was afraid that Wan Qianling would follow in her senior sister's footsteps and be indoctrinated with the idea that men were bad since she was young. That was why every time Wan Qianling went down the mountain, he would remind her repeatedly. He was afraid that Wan Qianling would be harmed by men. How could the original owner have thought that some things would come? Some things, the more you avoid them, the more they will come, and they will develop in a direction you don't want. The more he tried to stop it, the stronger the backlash would be. In the end, it would develop to an irreversible state. It all started when Wan Qianling went down the mountain and accidentally saved a seriously injured man. At first, she didn't think much of it. Saving people was just a casual thing. She felt that it was fun, curious, and occasionally poking her nose into other people's business. But as she got along with him, Wan Qianling was moved. The enchantress's heart was moved. That was incredible. Her love was much more intense than that of ordinary people. One was a demoness who was the public enemy of the martial arts world, and the other was the young master of a prestigious upright sect. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be for the two of them to be together. The name of the person saved by Wan Qianling was Nie Yunsheng. He was from the Drifting Cloud Villa. What was worth mentioning was that this person had a junior sister and had been engaged to her since they were young. Nie Yunsheng didn't really like Su Xinyue and only regarded her as his junior sister. Su Xinyue liked Nie Yunsheng very much. In the end, the two women fought for the same man. Wan Qianling was a person who dared to love and hate. As a result, Nie Yunsheng had suffered a lot of grievances and hardships. The pressure from the pugilistic world, the pressure from the righteous sects, junior sister Su Xinyue, and the obstruction from the palace master of Luo Hua Palace. Most importantly, there was also the misunderstanding from Nie Yunsheng. However, they were a match made in heaven. No matter how many hardships they went through, no matter how many lessons they learned, they would still be together. During this period, Nie Yunsheng had experienced countless hardships. Every time he went offline, Wan Qianling had helped him. In order to help Nie Yunsheng, Wan Qianling went against her own master. Not only that, when Nie Yunsheng's veins were crippled, Wan Qianling stole one of the most precious treasures of the Falling Flower Palace, the Xian Veins book. She gave it to Nie Yunsheng to practice, allowing him to become a martial arts expert again. Later, when Nie Yunsheng's life was hanging by a thread, she stole the Buddha lotus seed from the Falling Flower Palace and gave it to Nie Yunsheng, saving his life. Later on, Nie Yunsheng needed a rare sword in the world to defeat his opponent. Wan Qianling recalled that there was a very powerful sword in the Falling Flower Palace. It was said that ordinary people could not use it. She secretly brought Nie Yunsheng back to the Falling Flower Palace secret realm. Nie Yunsheng was the chosen one, so the divine sword was naturally taken away by him. The original master tried to stop them, but the two of them joined forces to injure her and then escaped. If the original master was not injured, they would not have been able to take it away. Wan Qianling, who was obsessed with love, did not know the situation of the Falling Flower Palace. She only felt that her master was biased against all men in the world and was stubborn. Especially when the original master wanted to kill Nie Yunsheng, Wan Qianling simply broke off with her. Chapter 38, 78. The Falling Flower Palace lost 3 treasures in succession, and the original owner was injured. Since then, they were unable to recover and were bullied by their opponents. When Wan Qianling accompanied Nie Yunsheng to grow up, she did not know that the Falling Flower Palace was going through a disaster. When they found out that the Falling Flower Palace had been defeated and the palace master had fallen. Later, in order to avenge the Falling Flower Palace, Wan Qianling killed many people. In order to stop her, Nie Yunsheng injured her, and the two began to torture each other. In the end, they still liked each other. In order to balance the martial arts world and save Wan Qianling's life, Nie Yunsheng handed over the divine sword and flew away with Wan Qianling. They lived a peaceful life in seclusion. The story of this world ended like this. The one who was the most upset was the original owner. Because Wan Qianling fell in love with a man, the Falling Flower Palace lost 3 treasures and finally experienced a disaster. All the people in the palace died. When Tangwa opened her eyes, she no longer felt that the girl who acted coquettishly in front of her was cute and playful. System. Host, what's going on with this world? Let's go see the treasures of the Falling Flower Palace first. When Tangwa came back to her senses, the first thing she thought of was this. The treasures of the Falling Flower Palace could not be stolen to save the stinky man outside.
System. M.
He felt that there would always be one that was not stinky in this world. He was waiting for the one that was not stinky to stick to the host's body. The 3 treasures were placed in different places. The martial arts secret realm Xian lineage manual was placed in a secret compartment in the seclusion room. Tangwa quickly ran to the seclusion room and opened the secret compartment based on her memory. There was a box inside, and a book wrapped in brocade in the box. It was the secret manual. After casually flipping through it, she put the secret realm into the system space. When she was about to put the box back, she calmly thought for a while. Tongzi, is there a martial arts secret manual like the sunflower manual in the system space? The system trembled. It did not expect the host to be like this. Host, let me look for it. It will be quick. The system scanned the various secret manuals in the system space very quickly. It didn't take long for it to find one. Tangwa looked at the secret manual in her hand and casually flipped through it. She saw the words embroidery arts on the cover. She felt that if someone saw these words, they might not be willing to practice it. She had finished browsing through the martial arts secret realm. Unlike the sunflower manual, there was no need to castrate oneself to cultivate. However, after cultivating this secret realm, Women would become prettier and prettier, while men would become more feminine and more feminine, regardless of whether it was their body, behavior, or physiology. Good, this secret manual is not bad. Tangwa tore off the cover and the cautions on the last page, which did not affect the completeness of the secret manual at all. If Nye Yunxing dared to practice, then he couldn't blame her. When stealing, one must be aware. How could Nye Yunxing not know that Wan Qianling stole from the Falling Flower Palace? He accepted it so naturally because he knew that it was good stuff. After putting away the embroidery arts, Tangwa went to the place where the Buddha lotus seed was kept. The Buddha lotus seed was in the Falling Flower Palace's treasury. Tangwa quickly found it. This time it was in a jade box. She opened it and took a look. There was a golden lotus seed inside. From its aura, she could tell that it was not an ordinary item. She did not hesitate and put it into the system space for temporary preservation. Chapter 3879. After taking the Buddha lotus seed, Tangwa was thinking about what to use to replace it. Thus, she patrolled around the Falling Flower Palace and found the place where the lotus was planted. Under the strange gazes of the palace disciples, she floated into the pond, pulled out a lotus, and returned to the treasury. She took out a lotus seed from the lotus and placed it in a jade box. The system reminded her, "Dear host, this will spoil. Since it's medicine, it will definitely spoil and has an expiration date. When they see that the lotus seed is spoiled, it will most likely be expired. What does it have to do with me if they steal it all?" System. Alright, so it can be done like this. Then, next was the forbidden area of the Falling Flower Palace, the place where the divine sword was kept. It was said that the divine sword was placed here by the first palace master of the Falling Flower Palace. Whoever could pull out the divine sword would be able to use the divine sword. However, after many palace masters, no one was able to pull it out. Tangwa felt that this was a scam. It was obviously set up by the heavens for the chosen one, Nye Yunxing. She looked at the dusty sword in front of her and reached out to pull it out. She used all the internal energy in her body and was unable to pull it out. She knew that this was the work of the heavens. The will of the heavens did not allow her to pull it out. This was something left for Nye Yunxing. And her Falling Flower Palace's existence was to give Nye Yunxing things. Not only did she give him things, but she also gave him his wife. Just thinking about it made her feel very sullen. The system saw that Tangwa was unable to pull out the divine sword and silently observed, afraid that the host would be angry. It observed that the energy was still increasing at a constant rate. It understood that the host was not angry and was slightly relieved. "Dear host, why don't you wait for Nye Yunxing to pull it out and then come and snatch it away? It'll be the same." "No, I want it now." Tangwa looked at the divine sword for a while. Since it was set up by the heavens, it should have some spiritual intelligence. Thus, she said to the divine sword, "Humans have a saying, if you can't get it, you'll destroy it. If you don't come out, I'll destroy you." With that, the divine sword in front of her actually let out a buzzing sound and then stopped moving. Tangwa understood what the other party meant. That buzzing sound was mocking her. "Tongzi, pick a sharp immortal sword for me. I want Big Brother Qi Xiao to refine it for me. If you can't get it, then destroy it. I'm not joking. No matter how divine this divine sword is, it's just a mortal sword. Once it's destroyed, I'll leave an immortal sword for the Falling Flower Palace." Tangwa condensed her inner energy into a ball and flicked the divine sword as a warning. "Before your sword breaks into two, you still have the chance to regret." Hearing Tangwa's threat, the divine sword hummed again, as if it was very confident in its sword's sturdiness and was not afraid of anything. Just then, a powerful immortal sword appeared in Tangwa's hand. This was an authentic immortal weapon, a product of the Crimson Firmament. It must be a top-quality item. Every time the Crimson Firmament refined something good, he would send a copy to Tangwa. Tangwa pulled out the scabbard and lightly jumped into the pool. She lightly stepped on a stone pillar in the pool and stood in front of the divine sword. Using the immortal sword in her hand, she gestured in front of the divine sword. Do you think the sword in my hand is more powerful, or you? It's just a low-grade item, yet you're so smug. You're just a country bumpkin sword that hasn't seen the world. I gave you a chance to abandon the dark and seek the light, yet you're so stubborn. With that, Tangguo was about to slash down. Chapter 3880. Of course, the result was that she didn't hit the divine sword. The divine sword, which was originally standing still in the pool, suddenly jumped out and lay on the flat ground next to the pool. It made a whining sound, as if it was begging for mercy. Tangguo put away the divine sword and jumped in front of it with a smile. With a wave of her hand, the divine sword fell into her hand. That's right. A wise man submits to circumstances. The divine sword whimpered again. The palace master of the Falling Flower Palace was too fierce. It was scared. If it didn't obey, it would be destroyed. It was too scary. The divine sword was thrown into the system space by Tangguo. It was shocked to find that the swords here were all high-grade goods. It also had a feeling that if the big bosses touched it lightly, it would break into pieces. The divine sword, which used to be very proud, was hiding in the corner of the system space and shivering. The system looked at the little divine sword's reaction and almost laughed to death. With the host here, it couldn't cure this bad habit of being proud. After dealing with the 3 treasures of the Falling Flower Palace, Tangguo returned to her room. The system remembered something and quickly reminded her. Host, there's a newcomer in the group. I don't know how long she has been here. If it weren't for the discussion in the group, we wouldn't have found out. It's been a long time, but the newcomer hasn't said a word and hasn't received a red packet. It's very strange. Tangguo entered the group and looked at the list of members. There was an extra name. Empress Dowager Chen. School bell. Everyone, I'm in a new world. Margaret. School bell didn't look for me, so she didn't come to the magic world. Disappointed, sigh. School bell. When fate comes, it can't be stopped. Don't be sad. Can you still have voice in video now? Take it as a meeting. This time I came to a martial arts world. If there's anything fun, I'll send it to you. Margaret, I seem to be comforted. Actually, I'm used to it. I'm looking forward to you coming, but you never come. If I don't look forward to it, maybe it really will come. But it's impossible for me not to look forward to it. Xian's sister, the newcomer Empress Dowager Chen, hasn't said anything for a long time. She hasn't received a red packet. You're the group leader. Can you see what's going on? After the last upgrade, Tangguo hadn't checked all the functions in the group. Taking advantage of this opportunity, she took a few more glances and realized that she had gained some authority as the group leader. Now, she had the privilege of being a group leader. She could actually use the ability to silence others. Perhaps it was because of the group she didn't have the ability to kick people. She felt that this function was useless. There weren't many people in this group, and it was fate that brought them here. Kicking people out wasn't very friendly. There was also no function to pull people in. At the end of the day, as the group leader, she only had the authority to ban people. It seemed to be of little use. She checked Empress Dowager Chen's profile card. Other than her nickname, there was nothing else. Her profile picture was still blank. It could be seen that she hadn't moved at all. The time in each world was different. According to the people in the group, they didn't know when Empress Dowager Chen had joined. Maybe she had spent a lifetime here, but only a few days had passed in the other world. School beauty. Maybe we've been here for a long time, but she's only been here for a few days, so she's still thinking about this group. Xian. That's possible. Shengguan Yungu. That's possible. I was like this before. It didn't take long on my side. Later, I heard from other people in the group that it had been a long time. Chapter 3881. Qi Shao. I paid special attention before. Time passes the fastest at the campus bell's side. Shengguan Yungu. Martial uncle, why don't you tell us what happened in this world? We're all curious. Maybe the newcomer, Empress Dowager Chen, will understand that this is not a dangerous place. This place is hidden, and only she can see it. No one else can. Xian. If she wants to say something, she can just use her consciousness to control it. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Margaret, our red packets won't expire. There's a red packet notification below the group. If she wants to receive it next time, she can just click on it. But the item will appear next to her. She has to find a place where no one can find it. The people in the group sent out all the key points so that Empress Dowager Chen could see it. After all, she was a member of the palace. It was normal for her to be vigilant about things that suddenly appeared. She was not an inexperienced person. After Tangwa told her what happened in this world, Empress Dowager Chen still did not make a move.
She did not care too much.
When the time was up and she felt it was appropriate, she should appear. According to the comparison of the passage of time, she was most likely still observing. After communicating in the group for a long time, Empress Dowager Chen did not appear. It could be seen that she was a patient person. Tangwa said goodbye to her friends in the group and withdrew her consciousness. Pay attention to Empress Dowager Chen's movements. Remember to inform me when she appears. Okay, host. Tangwa calculated the time and found that the current progress was just before Wan Qianling went down the mountain. Soon, she would inadvertently save Nie Yunsheng, who was seriously injured, and the two would begin to entangle. During this period, Tangwa decided to check the martial arts of the Falling Flower Palace disciples. According to the ranking of the martial arts world, her strength as the palace master of the Falling Flower Palace was considered a top master in the entire martial arts world. The ordinary disciples of the Falling Flower Palace were mostly second-rate. As for the protectors and hall masters, there were not many in the Falling Flower Palace. There were only a few of them, and they were considered first-class masters. In general, the Falling Flower Palace had such a high status in the martial arts world that no one dared to provoke it. It was mainly because of her, the palace master of the Falling Flower Palace, who was a top master. A force in the Jiang who only needed one top-notch expert and a few first-rate experts to support a large sect. It was no wonder that after the original owner was seriously injured, the Falling Flower Palace was destroyed by the enemy. A single top-notch expert could sweep away a sect without any top-notch experts. Wan Qianling's martial arts were not bad. She could be considered a first-class master. The difference between a first-class master and a top master was not small. If he did not encounter any fortuitous encounters during this period, it might take him several decades to reach that level. There were two quick ways for a first-rate expert to become a top-notch expert. First, the martial artist had to be a peerless genius. Second, there had to be a special fortuitous encounter. Actually, Nie Yunsheng wasn't a super talented person, but his luck was especially good. Whatever he lacked, the heavenly Tao would give him. The process was a little tortuous, but the result would be good. Wan Qianling's talent was not bad, at least better than Nie Yunsheng's. Unfortunately, he was a useless person who didn't care about anything once he fell in love with someone and couldn't tell right from wrong. After reading the memories, Tangwa did not have any hope for Wan Qianling. She liked Nie Yunsheng, so she could go ahead and like him. When she was at a disadvantage, she would have to suffer by herself. Chapter 3882. Wan Qianling's mother, Wan Feng, did not owe much to the original owner. At most, she took care of Wan Qianling in the beginning and raised Wan Qianling for more than 10 years. She had always focused on cultivating Wan Qianling. First, she had a good relationship with Wan Feng's senior and junior sisters. In addition, Wan Qianling was very talented. She planned to cultivate her to be the successor of Falling Flower Palace. To the outside world, Wan Qianling was the young palace master of Falling Flower Palace. It could be seen that her status was very high. If it were not for this traitor who stole the treasures of Falling Flower Palace and caused the enemies of Falling Flower Palace to find out about the situation and plot against the palace master, Falling Flower Palace would not have been destroyed. Without Wan Qianling, she could still cultivate other successors. The martial arts world was so big. Wasn't it easy to find a good seedling? Tangwa looked at the disciples in front of her practicing martial arts and fell into deep thought. The disciples of Falling Flower Palace were talented, but they were much worse than Wan Qianling. No matter what, Wan Qianling's parents were martial arts geniuses. Her talent would definitely not be bad. She had not chosen a suitable person in Falling Flower Palace for the time being. Tangwa was not in a hurry. The story had just begun. She could take it slowly. Dear host, the martial arts manuals you asked me to help you choose have been selected. Okay, let me see. In order to not let Falling Flower Palace suffer losses, she had to improve their martial arts first. She had collected a lot of martial arts manuals. Almost every time she went to a world, she would collect some specialties, especially books. No matter what kind of book it was, she would collect some. Since little Tongzi became smarter, she did not need to do these things herself. Tongzi could scan and store all the contents. If she wanted anything, she could find Tongzi. System, proud. After choosing the suitable martial arts manuals, Tangwa gathered the important disciples of Falling Flower Palace for a meeting. Palace Master, what happened? The core disciples of Falling Flower Palace saw Tangwa sitting in her seat so seriously and were a little nervous. Could it be that the enemy forces of Falling Flower Palace came to provoke them again? Did they occupy their territory, hurt their people, and snatch their shops? This was a martial arts world. Snatching territory, snatching shops, and occupying places was a common thing. Especially when two opposing forces were locked in a fierce battle, it was very common for people to die. In any case, it was a life and death grudge. They didn't care about face at all. It would be best to kill one of the other party's people. The Falling Flower Palace was called the Evil Palace by the people of Jianghu. Naturally, their opponents were definitely not good people. Normally, the righteous sects would not provoke the Falling Flower Palace. However, the evil sects would often clash with them. There is something. Palace Lord, is it the soul-snatching sect or the distant Soul Palace who provoked us this time? The left protector, Chun Mei, was an enchanting woman. Everyone in the Falling Flower Palace loved the color red. Even if the dress wasn't entirely red, there were still some red petals on the edge of the dress. Without waiting for Tangwa to speak, Right Guardian Xiaoming also spoke. Palace Lord, let me and Chun Mei go over and teach them a lesson. Let's see if they still dare to come over and make a scene. The current Falling Flower Palace was indeed not afraid of any sect. Seeing that the others were about to speak, Tangwa quickly stopped them. It's not someone who came to provoke us. It's something else. I asked you to come over and discuss it. Palace Lord, what is it? Chun Mei was relieved that it wasn't someone who provoked them. Is it something good? Tangwa didn't give them a chance to guess. She opened a wooden box in front of her. When I was cleaning the warehouse, I found a pile of martial arts manuals. Chapter 3883. As soon as Tangwa finished speaking, the disciples of Falling Flower Palace looked at the box of martial arts manuals in a daze, unable to react. Xiaomei asked tentatively, Palace Master, is this true? Martial arts manuals were not cabbages. How could she take out boxes of them? However, the Palace Master was not a person who liked to joke, so she should not joke about this. In the face of everyone's speculation, Tangwa said, I give you 3 days to memorize the martial arts manuals that are suitable for you. In the future, when you have nothing to do, you can practice on your own. After obtaining these martial arts manuals, don't use them on normal days, just practice in secret. Conserve some of our strength. If any thieves come, we will be able to catch them off guard. Tangwa's words made the eyes of the disciples of Falling Flower Palace light up. What a good way to catch the other party off guard. They liked it. After memorizing the manuals, no discussion is allowed. Understand? This subordinate understands. In other words, the secret realm was given to them to practice, but they had to act as if nothing had happened, just like before. On the surface, they would use ordinary martial arts, but when needed, they would use the martial arts manuals given to them by the Palace Master. Good. This way of hiding their strength would definitely make those thieves doubt their lives. Okay. I have written your names on each manual. You can choose the suitable one to practice. Tangwa paused and said, This matter must be hidden from Ling. In the face of everyone's doubts, Tangwa explained, Ling is inexperienced And now is the time when she is curious about Jianghu, so it is inevitable that she will make friends with some martial artists. She is young and not scheming, so it is better to hide such an important matter from her for now. When the time comes, she will know what she needs to know. Palace Master is thoughtful. Young Palace Master is indeed too young and likes to play in Jianghu. If she meets some swindler and accidentally finds out about Falling Flower Palace's trump card, it will indeed bring danger to our Falling Flower Palace. Everyone in Jianghu knew that Falling Flower Palace had 3 treasures, and now they had more trump cards, so it was good. Tanghua looked at the disciples of Falling Flower Palace seriously flipping through the manuals and was satisfied. Those who were gathered by her today were the core members of Falling Flower Palace. In the original plot, in order to protect the Falling Flower Palace, he fought to the end and refused to leave the Falling Flower Palace, no matter how much he was threatened. There's one more thing. In the future, if anything strange happens in the Falling Flower Palace, just pretend that you don't know. If anything happens, just report it to me. There's no need to stop it. Xiao Yu did not understand. Palace Master, why is that? Take this as a test for Ling Er. She is the young Palace Master. As the young Palace Master, she needs to grow. Without experiencing some things, how can I feel at ease leaving the Falling Flower Palace in her hands? Tanghua stated the reason in a serious manner. The Falling Flower Palace disciples present did not doubt her at all. Instead, they thought that it was reasonable. Palace Lord is so thoughtful. Then, in the future, whatever the young Palace Lord does, we will pretend that we don't know and wait for Palace Lord's orders? Chun Mei asked. After hearing Tanghua's affirmation, everyone memorized these words and then began to recite the secret martial arts books. It was not difficult for them to recite these books in 3 days. 3 days later, everyone recited the secret martial arts books and left the main hall, returning to their rooms to practice. Tanghua observed for several days and found that this group of Falling Flower Palace disciples really did not mention anything about what happened that day. There was not even a word of discussion. Every day, other than practicing, they would practice. Moreover, they would listen to whatever she said. It felt like they had been brainwashed by the head of a pyramid scheme. She was the head of the pyramid scheme. Chapter 3884. After dealing with the Falling Flower Palace, Tanghua planned to go to Jianghu. Staying in the palace all day and having nothing to do, she might as well go and watch the fun. Now Jianghu was bustling. Wan Qianling and Nie Yunqing's background were very melodramatic. Of course, she couldn't go to Jianghu as the master of the Falling Flower Palace. The master of the Falling Flower Palace always covered her face and was very mysterious. She never showed her real face to people. Even Wan Qianling didn't know what she looked like. She rarely went to Jianghu. In the plot, she went there mostly because of Wan Qianling. Tanghua and the disciples of the Falling Flower Palace announced that she was going to practice in seclusion. In fact, she took off her veil and changed into the popular clothes of Jianghu women. Holding a long sword, she went to Jianghu to wander. The place she was going to today was the Drifting Cloud Villa. Something interesting was happening here, all because of Nie Yunsheng. Nie Yunsheng was the young master of the Drifting Cloud Villa. He was also called Big Brother by the other disciples of the villa. He was the son of the villa master, Nie He. The current situation was that Nie Yunsheng had mysteriously disappeared for half a month. The Drifting Cloud Villa had sent countless people to find him, but they couldn't find him. As the father, Nie, he couldn't sit still. He invited all the martial artists to help find Nie Yunsheng's whereabouts. All the martial artists went to the Drifting Cloud Villa. It wasn't that they were enthusiastic, but that Nie He had offered them a reward. Once they found Nie Yunsheng, they could get all the rewards. There were 3 rewards: 10,000 taels of gold, a detoxification pill that could cure hundreds of poisons, and a top-class martial arts manual. Just one of the 3 rewards was enough to attract a lot of people. The martial artists were also short of money. The martial arts world was very dangerous. There were all kinds of poisons that were impossible to guard against. A detoxification pill that could cure hundreds of poisons was something many people dreamed of. This kind of detoxification pill could only be found in the Elixir Valley. Ordinary people couldn't get one even if they knelt outside the Elixir Valley every day. As for a top-class martial arts manual, it was the foundation of the martial arts world. Some people who didn't have orthodox martial arts needed it very much. In order to find his son, Nye had spent a lot of money. Finding Nye Yunsheng and being able to establish a good relationship with the Flowing Cloud Mountain Villa was a major force. Who wouldn't be willing? Tang Guo followed the martial artists into the Drifting Cloud Mountain Villa. The Drifting Cloud Mountain Manor was really big. So many people had come, but it seemed like it could not fit them all. There was a banquet inside. As long as there were new guests, the servants of the Drifting Cloud Manor would immediately add tables, chairs, and refreshments for the guests to rest. When most of the people had arrived, Tang Guo saw a dignified, middle-aged man walking out. Beside him was a woman with red eyes who was wiping her tears. Behind the two of them, there were also some young people. Everyone, thank you for coming to my Drifting Cloud Manor today. Nye cupped his hands and said with a pained expression, "My son has been missing for many days. I have no other choice but to invite everyone here. I hope that through everyone's strength, we can find my son's whereabouts as soon as possible. Rumor has it that as long as we find young Master Nye, the Manor Lord will give us 10,000 taels of gold, a detoxification pill, and a top-class martial arts manual. Is this true?" The people who came were not interested in Nye Yunsheng's disappearance, but the rewards. Nye nodded and said with a serious face, "Nye, he promises that no matter who finds my son, these 3 things will belong to that person. Then let's discuss when and where young Master Nye went missing. That way it will be easier to find him," someone suggested. When Nye was about to nod, an inappropriate voice suddenly sounded. "Wait, I have a question." The voice came from the door. Everyone turned around and saw a man in black with a sword on his back walk in. When they saw this man, the crowd began to discuss. "It's Lu Qijian. That sword maniac is here. It can't be what I think it is, right? Lu Qijian?" Tang Guo also looked over and saw the man with the sword on his back walk in. The man's face was cold and all of his attention was on Nye. It was as if everyone else was just a background. Chapter 3885. Yes, in the eyes of a sword maniac, other than the person who was competing with him, he couldn't see anyone else. "So it's young Master Lu Qijian. Do you also want to help find my son?" Nye asked. Lu Qijian looked up and nodded. "Yes, but I don't want the rewards." "What does young Master Lu want?" Lu Qijian's voice was flat as he said calmly, "When we find him, you will compete with me." Everyone's mouth twitched. They knew it would be like this. Lu Qijian knew a peerless sword technique. He was a sword maniac who was addicted to sword techniques. He was interested in anyone's sword technique. With his martial arts, it was easy for him to steal someone else's sword technique. However, he disdained to do that and would directly invite the other party to compete. Through competing with the opponent, he could comprehend the essence of the sword technique. Normal people weren't willing to compete with him. Whether it was internal strength or sword technique, no one was Lu Qijian's opponent. If a reputable sect leader of a large sect agreed to such a thing and lost, it would be a bit shameful and a loss of prestige. Lu Qijian wouldn't force people. He invited people to compete, but he wouldn't force them. Thus, in the eyes of the people of Zhenghu, he was a swordsman worthy of respect and not an unreasonable person. However, this person only had the sword in his eyes. Many people who wanted to rope him in were rejected. No one knew who his master was. They only knew that this was a person who didn't care about anything other than competing. Tang Guo recalled the plot. Lu Qijian was occasionally mentioned. This was a person who walked the Zhenghu but didn't mingle with the people of Zhenghu. He only competed and studied the sword his entire life. He didn't participate in any benefits or fights between factions. He had a strong presence and wasn't feared by others. Those who provoked Lu Qijian for no reason wouldn't have a good ending. He also had a special characteristic. He didn't kill with one strike. Instead, he used 7 different sword techniques, as if to prove that he was Lu Qijian. Perhaps because Tangwa's gaze was too serious, it attracted Lu Qijian's attention. He glanced at Tangwa. His eyes were still as calm as ever. However, he looked at Tangwa for a long time. He looked away twice and then back twice. No one else noticed this detail. Their attention was on Nie He. They were looking forward to the competition between Nie He and Lu Qijian. They also wanted to know whether the world's #1 villa's master, Nie He, or Lu Qijian was better. As long as young Master Lu can find my son, I agree to have a sword duel with you. Perhaps only Lu Qijian would think of having the world's #1 villa master compete in swords. This result was what everyone was looking forward to. Yeah, he was also taking some risks by agreeing to this. If he won, the villa's reputation would be better. If he lost, it wouldn't be a bad thing. However, it would affect the villa's reputation to a certain extent. Both Lu Qijian and Nie He were famous figures in Jianghu. If Nie He lost in the sword competition, when people mentioned him in the future, they would inevitably say that he was the one who lost in the competition with Lu Qijian. No one knew why, but it still didn't sound good. Nie He's behavior made people feel that he valued Nie Yunsheng. Would you like to stay for banquet? You've traveled a long way to the villa. Why don't you take a rest and have some tea before you leave? Lu Qijian didn't refuse. He was indeed a little hungry. The villa servants quickly led him to an open space. They quickly moved a table and chairs and placed tea and snacks. Chapter 3886. While Lu Qijian was eating, he felt that someone was looking at him. He looked to the side and found that the person looking at him was Tangwa. He stared at Tangwa for a long time. Seeing that she didn't say anything and didn't show any expression, he continued to eat, intending to ignore this strange gaze. System. Don't regret it. Dear host, is this sword fanatic your cutie? Not yet. Tangwa said. System. Sooner or later. After all, how could someone who is so ruthless to himself let go of this opportunity? Don't look at how crazy he is with his sword right now. Sooner or later, his wife will be more important than his sword. It's hard to say about other people, but this guy was willing to throw away his face for his wife.
What was a sword to him?
Lu Qijian didn't look at Tangwa, but Tangwa glanced at him from time to time. Even if Lu Qijian deliberately ignored her gaze, he still couldn't help but notice that she was seriously sizing him up. During the banquet, the people of Jianghu were discussing what had happened recently. It was very lively. Most of the discussions revolved around Nie Yunsheng's disappearance. During this time, Nie He had already told everyone about the details of Nie Yunsheng's disappearance. The people of Jianghu were all discussing these details. The disciples of the manor who went out with Nie Yunsheng were all killed. Only Nie Yunsheng's whereabouts were still unknown. If he was alive, they couldn't find him. If he was dead, they couldn't find his corpse either. Everyone felt that Nie Yunsheng was the leader of Jianghu's younger generation. Although his martial arts weren't very good, he was still much better than the ordinary disciples of the manor. When he encountered danger, he might have escaped. But this idea was quickly overturned. Since Nie Yunsheng escaped, why didn't he escape to Drifting Cloud Manor? It had already been half a month. How could he escape to Drifting Cloud Manor? Therefore, most people thought that Nie Yunsheng had been taken away by someone. In fact, in their hearts, they guessed that Nie Yunsheng was already dead. After all, the people who were with him were all killed. Although Nie Yunsheng's martial arts were good, he wasn't a top master. He wasn't even a first-class master. The possibility of him being killed was very high. That was what they thought, but they didn't dare to say it out loud. They didn't want to upset Nie He. If they found the corpse, it wouldn't be good if he didn't reward them. Nie He promised that as long as he found the person, he would give the 3 rewards. He didn't say whether the person was dead or alive. The banquet gradually came to an end, and the people of Jianghu from all sides gradually bid farewell to each other. Tangwa did not want to stay any longer. She had to follow the plot and join in the fun. She had already arranged everything that needed to be arranged. As for the rest, she would just have to watch the show. Her appearance was very ordinary in the Jianghu. She wore a simple dress and held a simple long sword. She only used a wooden hairpin to hold her hair up. Even so, she was still a beauty. The people next to her couldn't help but take a few more glances at her. Seeing her unfamiliar face, they tried to recall her identity, but couldn't find out who she was. They thought that she was an unknown person in the Jianghu. Some of the more boorish people in the Jianghu looked at her openly, as if they were afraid that others didn't know what they were thinking. Tang Gui didn't pay attention to those explicit looks. As long as they didn't make a move, she wouldn't make a move. If they dared to make a move, there were few people in the Jianghu who would be lenient. If they dared to come, they would have to eat her sword first. After walking out of the manor, Tang Gui found that several big men had been following her. Chapter 38-87. Finally, when they passed through a forest, those big men stopped in front of Tang Gui with strange smiles. There were good and bad people among these Jianghu people. There were decent people and people who cared about face. There were also quite a number of small fries. People like these big men in front of her were common in Jianghu. It was common for them to take liberties with Jianghu newbies and bully women who were weak in Jianghu and didn't belong to any sect. We have been in Jianghu for many years and have seen countless people. Why do I find you unfamiliar? May I know who your master is and which sect you are from? The big man pretended to be polite, which was indeed a bit funny. If you want to bully someone, you have to ask about their background. If they have a background, they can't provoke them. If they don't have a reputation, they won't bring trouble to themselves. Even if they kill them, it will be a small matter. Tang Gui knew what they were thinking and said, I don't belong to any sect. Don't belong to any sect? Where are you going, miss? We saw you go to Drifting Cloud Mountain Villa. Are you going to find young Master Nya? To be honest, Drifting Cloud Mountain Villa has invested a lot this time. If you can find young Master Nya, of course it will be good. The big man said again. Another person said, but we think you are new to Jianghu. It is very dangerous. It is inconvenient to do anything alone. How about you go with us? They planned to trick Tang Gui into going on the road first. When the time was right, they would drug her and avoid the trouble of fighting with swords. If the other party had a strong reaction and had a fierce temper, it would not be fun if she died. No need. I am used to being alone. I see. Seeing that Tang Gui refused, the leading big man didn't insist. Well, we won't force you. Tang Gui nodded to them and followed Lu Qijian. Her pace was not fast, mainly because Lu Qijian didn't look like he was in a hurry. Of course, he also knew that the strange woman from before seemed to be following him. Behind Tang Gui, those big men were still following. It wasn't their style to give up like this. There would always be a chance to attack if they followed. About an hour later, Tang Gui followed Lu Qijian into the city and stayed in Lu Qijian's inn. During this time, Lu Qijian didn't turn back to ask Tang Gui. Tang Gui also didn't look for him. They had a tacit understanding. Great host, are you going to keep following him? I can watch the show if I follow him. Of course. Of course. If a certain someone knew the truth, he would probably faint from crying. After a while, the waiter brought Tang Gui food and wine.
Them.
Great host, teach them a lesson later. Tang Gui got rid of the food, blew out the candles and lay on the bed. After a while, she heard movement from the window. Then, a few black figures flipped in. Big brother, you slept so soundly. This medicine is really good. Ha ha ha, of course it's good. This medicine is not so easy to get. The more you use, the less you have. Hearing Tang Gui mention Lu Qijian, the waiter's face twitched. He then heard Tang Gui say, are there any empty rooms around his room? If there is, arrange it for me. Yes, there is. Lu Qijian is staying in Emperor's Room 1. I'll arrange for Heroine Tang to stay in Emperor's Room 2, which is directly opposite. Okay. Tang Gui threw a silver ingot to the waiter. The waiter instantly smiled and hurriedly took her away. She didn't expect that when she arrived at the room, Lu Qijian was standing at the door and staring at her with his arms crossed. The two of them looked at each other briefly. This time it was Lu Qijian who spoke first. Your swordsmanship is not bad. Do you want to compete? You peeked at me? Tangwa narrowed her eyes and asked, Do you want to do something to me? The waiter was speechless. Did Lu Qijin know how to look at a girl? This guy probably couldn't differentiate between men and women. He only had eyes for swords. How could he look at a girl? Lu Qijin didn't feel embarrassed at all. He said calmly, I've checked the Jiang brothers' wounds. Your swordsmanship is very unique. Chapter 3889. A Sword Duel? Lu Qijin stared at Tangwa seriously. No, he was staring at the sword in her hand. It still had the smell of blood on it. From the wounds of the Jiang brothers, he could tell that her sword skills were very exquisite. He could also tell that her martial arts skills were very strong. She was not a newbie in the Jianghu, like others thought. She was a top-notch expert. Lu Qijin could not tell who was stronger between them. He was not interested in Tangwa's identity. He just wanted to have a sword duel with her. Dear host, his eyes are burning. I knew it. Now that he has seen you, he will definitely treat you differently. The system said in a mocking tone. Tangwa poured cold water on the system. At this moment, I am very clear that he is not looking at me. He is very interested in my sword skills. The system observed carefully and found that Lu Qijin's eyes were not filled with love or admiration, but with interest and excitement. It instantly felt bored. Fine, he would spend the rest of his life with his sword. Tangwa shook her head.
No.
How can we have a duel? Lu Qijin did not give up. He was so excited to meet an unfathomable opponent that the sword in his hand was about to jump out. He really wanted to drag her out for a fight. He had not felt this way for many years. In the past few years, he had sparred with many people in the Jianghu. There were nameless people and top-notch experts. But in terms of understanding sword skills, he had always felt that it was enough. He had thought that she had been staring at him because she was interested in his sword skills. Especially after checking the wounds of the Jiang brothers, he was even more certain that she wanted to have a sword duel with him. But he did not expect her to reject him. This made Lu Qijin very disappointed. Tangwa saw his disappointed expression, and her lips unconsciously curled into a smile. Seeing this, Lu Qijin continued to ask, I want to have a sword duel with you. The waiter was speechless. He was sandwiched between two top-notch experts. He was under a lot of pressure. It was not easy being a waiter these days. I don't want to compete with swords. Tangwa refused again. Lu Qijin did not give up. What do you want before you agree to compete with me? Name your conditions. I don't want to compete with swords for the time being. For now? Lu Qijin grasped the key words, and his eyes became somewhat fervent. Then when do you want to have a sword duel? I don't know. Then when you want to compete with me, remember to compete with me first. Lu Qijin was particularly serious when he said this. I'm very free anytime. This time, Tangwa finally nodded. All right, I'll look for you when I feel like sparring. Lu Qijin finally smiled. He cupped his hands and said, I am Lu Qijin. May I know your name, miss?
Done.
Miss Tang, let's make a deal. If you want to spar, you have to find me. Okay, Tangwa replied. When the time comes, you can name your conditions. As long as it doesn't go against my Lu Qijin's Jianghu rules, I'll definitely do it. The waiter looked back and forth between the Heavenly Room 1 and Heavenly Room 2 in confusion as he scratched his head. So, these two big shots already knew each other and agreed to have a sword duel in the future? Speaking of which, who is this Miss Tang? She was actually recognized by Lu Qijin. No matter what her background was, she was definitely not someone whom they could provoke. The next day, the news that Tangwa had crippled the three Jiang brothers spread throughout the Jianghu. In just one day, Tangwa could be considered a little famous in the Jianghu. Dear host, Lu Qijin actually wants to follow you. The next day, when Tangwa went out, Lu Qijin followed her. Let me ask. On the way, Tangwa and Lu Qijin rode side by side on horseback. She asked, Why are you following me? It's convenient for a sword duel. Lu Qijin said very seriously, When you want to, you can do it any time. System. Sorry, he thought of something else. It's a bit dirty. I'll slip away and disturb you. Everyone in the Jianghu was looking for Nie Yunsheng, but they didn't know that Nie Yunsheng was injured and fell off a cliff. Under the care of Yuan Qianling, his injuries were almost healed. After his injuries were healed, Nie Yunsheng planned to go to Floating Clouds Mountain Villa. Yuan Qianling was a bit worried about his safety, so she accompanied him. Chapter 3890. Nie Yunsheng always felt that there was something strange about the person who wanted to kill him. He led the disciples of the villa out before, because there was a very important thing that he needed to escort, which was commonly known as escort in Jianghu. The name of Drifting Cloud Villa was well known in Jianghu. With the name of Drifting Cloud Villa, no one dared to rob the escort. But this time, the opponent not only came, but also directly killed the disciples of Drifting Cloud Villa. If it weren't for his martial arts, he might have died in the hands of the opponent. What he felt strange was that under normal circumstances, people in Jianghu would directly hurt and rob the escort. They would not continue to fight, let alone kill. Of course, robbing the escort was mainly to rob the escort. But the person who came to rob the escort last time didn't seem to want to rob the escort, but to directly kill them. Nie Yunsheng was afraid that the person would kill him again if he knew that he was not dead, so he prepared to go back to Drifting Cloud Villa in disguise. After Yuan Qianling understood his idea, she also helped him to disguise himself. This was why no one could discover Nie Yunsheng's identity in Jianghu now. Tang Gua knew the plot. The reason why Nie Yunsheng was exposed was that on the way, he met his junior sister apprentice Zhu Xinue and had a conflict with others. Seeing his junior sister apprentice being bullied, how could Nie Yunsheng stand by and do nothing? Of course, he would go forward to support her. Nie Yunsheng planned to secretly return to the villa and at the same time investigate on the way whether someone was targeting Drifting Cloud Villa, so he didn't reveal his identity. Unexpectedly, Lu Qijian saw through the swordsmanship he used. In the end, Lu Qijian found Nie Yunsheng's real body and took him back to Drifting Cloud Villa. In front of Lu Qijian, Yuan Qianling was no match for him. Lu Qijian only wanted to compete with swordsmanship. Of course, he would not hurt Nie Yunsheng. Yuan Qianling was worried, so she followed him to Drifting Cloud Villa. Lu Qijian. Tang Gua called out to Lu Qijian, and Lu Qijian leaped to her side. There was not much expression on his face, but his eyes were very eager. "Miss Tang, do you want to have a sword duel?" Lu Qijian asked directly. He believed that other than this reason, there was nothing else that Tang Gua would want to do. The sword in his hand was trembling, and he had the urge to unsheath it immediately.
No.
Tang Gua denied. "I don't want to compete with you for the time being. I remember that you wanted to compete with Nie He. You've been following me all day. If you don't find Nie Yunsheng, how can you compete with Nie He?" Lu Qijian fell into deep thought. He even cast a glance at Tang Gua, as if he was weighing between Nie He and Tang Gua, who could compete with him first. Miss Tang seems to be looking for Nie Yunsheng as well. Tang Gua nodded. "Yes. Then Miss Tang will go with me. Let's look for him together," Lu Qijian said. Tang Gua frowned slightly, as if she was thinking, "If that person is found, who will it belong to?" "It's mine," Lu Qijian answered without thinking. Tang Gua was not in a hurry. She waited for him to continue. "Sure enough," he said, 10,000 taels of gold, antidote pills, and a sword. I can give you these 3 things." As the first swordsman in Jianghu, he could compete with others every day. He was definitely not a simple person. But Lu Qijian said it so easily, which surprised Tang Gua. In the plot, there was no mention of Lu Qijian's background. Even if he had always existed in Jianghu, he did not have much involvement with the male and female protagonists. "Miss Tang, if you think it's too little, I can give you double." Chapter 3891. Tang Gua agreed to Lu Qijian's request. Originally, she had planned to follow Lu Qijian to join in the fun. Now that she could join in the fun and get something, why not? System, host, do you lack that? Even the Falling Flower Palace's treasury has a lot of things, right? Even the 3 treasures that people coveted were much more valuable than the treasures from the Drifting Cloud Mountain Manor. Men mislead people. In less than 2 days, There were rumors in Jianghu that Lu Qijian and Miss Tang, the one who crippled the three Jiang brothers, were together. It was said that the two were together every day, staying at the same inn, eating at the same table, and often communicating with each other. They didn't know Tanghua, but they were very familiar with Lu Qijian. In their impression, Lu Qijian only had eyes for swords. Even the number one beauty of Jianghu, Luo Lisan, couldn't move Lu Qijian's heart. At that time, the number one beauty, Luo Lisan, wanted to befriend Lu Qijian, but he didn't understand her feelings at all. Tanghua also heard these rumors when she was resting and drinking tea. She frequently looked at Lu Qijian, and Lu Qijian would ask, "Does Miss Tang want to compete with swords?" System. It's strange these days, there are actually people who want to compete with each other. Tanghua shook her head and couldn't help but laugh. They all say that you're the head of a willow tree. That's not important, Lu Qijian said. Competing with swords is a serious matter. Tanghua continued to gossip. Do you know the number one beauty of Jianghu, Luo Lisan? Her martial arts are good, but her swordsmanship is terrible. She's good at satin and concealed weapons. Lu Qijian directly mentioned Luo Lisan's strengths. As for Luo Lisan's most eye-catching beauty, it wasn't a strong point for him, so it should be said that he didn't pay attention to it. Have you competed with her before? Tanghua asked again. Lu Qijian shook his head. Her swordsmanship isn't worth comparing. It's not exquisite at all. It has form but no spirit. Did she once clamor to compete with you in swordsmanship, saying that if you lost, you had to promise her one thing? This was mentioned in the plot. The number one beauty of the Jianghu, Luo Lisan, had her eyes on Lu Qijian. Lu Qijian was a straight man, and a straight man who only had eyes for swords. Of course, he would run into obstacles everywhere he went. In order to get Lu Qijian's attention, Luo Lisan even studied swordsmanship. Luo Lisan's talent in martial arts was not bad, but she was not good at swordsmanship. Swordsmanship had to be practiced from a young age. Unless one was a genius in swordsmanship, they would have to put in a lot of hard work and time to hone their skills. Her swordsmanship was nothing compared to Lu Qijian's, so he naturally wouldn't compare with her. Luo Lisan wanted to rely on her swordsmanship to make Lu Qijian look at her in a different light. She was not willing to give up, so she did many things to attract Lu Qijian's attention. However, he was really an unromantic straight man. Until Nie Yunxing's fate changed. From an ordinary second-generation martial artist to an influential figure in the Jianghu, Luo Lisan suddenly felt that Nie Yunxing was the true hero of the Jianghu in her heart, so she forgot about Lu Qijian. Did you?
Tanghua asked.
Lu Qijian nodded. Yes, I did. Then why don't you compete with her? I think people in the Jianghu don't want to compete with you. Lu Qijian didn't feel that there was any trap in this question, so he repeated his previous answer. I don't want to compete with her. If her swordsmanship is exquisite and worth competing with you, then her condition is that if she wins, you have to promise her one thing, and even marry her. Are you willing to compete with her? System. Dear host, do you really want to do this? She's just a blockhead, who only has eyes for swords. It's not good to dig a hole like this, right? Chapter 3892. He could already feel that Lu Qijian was about to walk into the hole that his host had dug for him, the kind that he wouldn't be able to climb out of. Saying such words to a sword maniac, wasn't it the same as pushing him into the fire pit? Lu Qijian pondered for a moment before saying, Let's do it. System. It's over, it's over. You brat, you're done for. All right, you can live alone for the rest of your life, without a wife. Aren't you afraid that you'll really lose? Tanghua didn't feel uncomfortable. She was just asking for fun. Saying such words to a sword maniac was full of traps. Right now, she didn't have any relationship with Lu Qijian, so it was normal for her to agree. Therefore, her little Tongzi was a bit worried. Moreover, whether or not this would work would depend on how things developed. Luo Lisan can be considered a first-rate expert in Jianghu, and When Lu Qijian said this, there was a bit of pride in his expression. I'm a first-rate expert. I've been one since I was 15 years old. Many years have passed since then. System. She can't win. Lu Qijian said with certainty. She's destined to not win. Even if she agrees, it won't change the result. System. What if she's stronger than you? Lu Qijian. Impossible. She's improving. I'm improving at 10 times the speed. She can't be stronger than me. If Luo Lisan is stronger than me one day, I'll destroy the sword in my hand and never hold a sword again. Lu Qijian's talent in swordsmanship was top-notch, so he said such words. If he was surpassed by a mere Luo Lisan, this sword really wouldn't be suitable for him. System. This is the legendary desire to live under restriction. He was wondering where this guy's desire to live went. It turned out that it was waiting for him here. That's right. How could a sword maniac not compete? Wouldn't that violate his character setting? Lu Qijian, if one day you find someone who can defeat you in swordsmanship, will you continue to find others to compete with? The storyline never mentioned whether Lu Qijian had been defeated when he found an opponent. Tang Gua asked this purely out of curiosity. She wanted to take advantage of the fact that they weren't familiar with each other to satisfy her curiosity. Once they were familiar with each other, this guy's character setting would be changed. System. So bad.
No.
So, you compete with others because you're too strong and you want to find someone to defeat you? Why not change it to Lu Qiubai? My name was given to me by my parents. Lu Qijian will never change his name. Seeing his serious expression to her to compete to win, Tang Xiu, to be sure. To compete to win to win. I'll study my sword techniques first. After defeating the person who defeated me, I'll find someone else to spar with. Lu Qijian gave his answer. Tang Gua was curious again. If you can't defeat your opponent, you won't be able to compete with others and can only continue to study? System. Why do I feel like something's not right? Are you trying to dig a hole for me? Why did he feel that there were pitfalls everywhere? Lu Qijian's eyes lit up. If I can't defeat anyone for the rest of my life, I only need one opponent. Tang Gua shook her head and smiled. This strange smile made the system feel that something was wrong. It didn't say anything. It wasn't easy to guess a woman's thoughts, and it wasn't easy to guess its host's thoughts either. As a woman, it was better not to guess. Tang Gua followed Lu Qijian and soon arrived at the location in the storyline. There were many people here, and it seemed that a conflict had broken out. Chapter 3893. Tang Gua and Lu Qijian walked into the crowd. Sure enough, they saw a woman fighting fiercely with someone. This beautiful green-clothed woman was none other than Su Xinhua, whom they had met at the Flowing Cloud Mountain Villa that day. The Drifting Cloud Villa was the #1 villa in Jianghu. Ordinary people and decent people would give them some face. The person fighting with Su Xinhua was from the Soul Snatcher sect. The Soul Snatcher sect was considered an evil sect in Jianghu. They didn't care about face or morality. The reason for the conflict was that the Soul Snatcher sect had always been overbearing. They felt that the waiter was too slow to serve the dishes and looked down on him, so they made things difficult for him. Su Xinhua had a chivalrous spirit. She couldn't stand it, so she spoke up for the waiter. Her words were very rude, which angered the Soul Snatcher sect. The two sides fought from the restaurant to the street. The tables and chairs in the restaurant were also destroyed. The timid guests quickly left. The shopkeeper stood at the door with a bitter face. He was waiting for the two sides to finish and see who would compensate him for the loss. He couldn't do anything if the two sides didn't compensate. In fact, he blamed Su Xinhua in his heart. Originally, he only needed to pay for the dishes on the Soul Snatcher sect's table. Now, he didn't know how much he would lose. The Soul Snatcher sect couldn't compensate him. Su Xinhua was gradually at a disadvantage. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to get the compensation. She could only admit that she was unlucky today. Tang Gua stood in the crowd and watched. Su Xinhua was beaten until she kept retreating. She was about to lose. No one intervened, unless it was a big sect who would dare to provoke the Soul Snatcher sect. The Soul Snatcher sect dared to provoke the Falling Flower Palace and the Drifting Cloud Villa. Weren't they courting death by provoking them? Drifting Cloud Villa. What's so great about it? Ha ha ha, stupid girl. You're not good enough. If you have the ability, ask Niehi to come here personally. The Soul Snatcher sect's leader slapped Su Xinyue's shoulder with his internal force. Su Xinyue was immediately hit, and blood spurted out of her mouth. Tang Guo felt something strange in the distance. She thought to herself. Just as Su Xinyue was about to hit the ground, a person suddenly flew out from the distance and caught the injured Su Xinyue.
Who are you?
How dare you meddle in the business of my soul-seizing sect? The leader of the soul-snatching sect's men had a venomous look on his face as he said, "Tell me your name and hand over that damned girl. This girl's mouth stinks. I'm going to teach her a lesson today and cut off her tongue. Only then will she learn not to spout nonsense." The Soul Snatcher sect was not afraid of becoming enemies with any sect, even if it was the Drifting Cloud Mountain Manor. After all, the hatred between them was not a little bit, and no one could do anything to the other. The person who caught Su Xinyue was Nie Yunsheng, who had pretended to be defeated. When Wan Qianling came to his side, he handed Su Xinyue over to Wan Qianling to take care of. Tang Guo was standing in the crowd, so Wan Qianling didn't recognize her. The original owner had always been wearing a veil, so it was normal for her not to be recognized in the Falling Flower Palace. Wan Qianling would never have thought that Tang Guo would disguise herself and come to Jianghu to play. When Wan Qianling saw Su Xinyue, she had a subtle feeling in her heart and did not like her very much. This was because Nie Yunsheng had asked her for help, so she reluctantly agreed. Nie Yunsheng knew that it was useless to reason with the people of the Soul Snatcher sect. He was very direct and went up to fight with them. The leader of the Soul Snatcher sect shouted, "Good. Since you like to meddle in other people's business, I don't care who you are. I won't let you go back." After saying that, he led the people of the Soul Snatcher sect to launch a fierce attack on Nie Yunsheng. Chapter 3894. At this time, Nie Yunsheng was not very strong. These people's martial arts were not very strong, but they were not weak either. It was not difficult for them to deal with Nie Yunsheng. Therefore, it was not easy for Nie Yunsheng to deal with them. There was even a possibility of defeat. The two sides fought for a while. Seeing that Nie Yunsheng was about to be defeated, Wan Qianling could not sit still. She tiptoed and flew over. She used the red silk to slap away the knife that was about to attack Nie Yunsheng's heart. "You'd better go see her yourself. Leave these people to me. People from the Soul Snatcher sect. I like to bully people from the Soul Snatcher sect the most." Wan Qianling was dressed very ostentatiously in a red dress. The people of the Falling Flower Palace were good at swords. Wan Qianling was also good at swords, but she usually did not use swords. She liked to use red silk because she felt that it was more beautiful to fight like this. Also, because Luo Lisan, who is known as the #1 beauty in Jianghu, used moon-white silk, she felt that the two of them were a little repetitive. So, she put a luminous pearl on the end of the red silk to show that she was different from Luo Lisan. Needless to say, Wan Qianling was indeed very beautiful when she fought, especially with a small bell on her ankle. Every step she took, the crisp sound was exceptionally pleasing to the ear, like music. Wan Qianling was very talented. Whether it was using swords or using red silk as a weapon, they were all very smooth. It was more than enough to deal with a few people from the Soul Snatcher sect. In a short while, the people from the Soul Snatcher sect were beaten by Wan Qianling to the point that they could not fight back. Seeing that they could not win, they prepared to escape. "Wanna escape? Have you asked me, Wan Qianling?" Wan Qianling put the luminous pearl on the red silk in front of them. She jumped over and stopped in front of them. "Weren't you arrogant just now? If you want to leave, then leave something behind. Didn't you want her tongue just now?" Wan Qianling pointed at Su Xinyue and snorted.
"I don't want much."
"You can leave after cutting off your tongue." In fact, many people in the crowd had already recognized Wan Qianling. Her dress was as red as fire, and she used red silk and luminous pearls as weapons. It was too conspicuous. When they heard that Wan Qianling wanted to seize the tongue of the Soul sect, they felt a chill in their hearts. This was indeed the style of the demonist Qianling. Evidently, He had forgotten that the people from the soul-seizing sect had tried to cut off Su Xinyue's tongue. Wan Qianling, don't think that we won't dare to do anything to you just because you're from the Falling Flower Palace. Don't go too far. Oh, what are you going to do to me? Weren't you all defeated by me? You've lost, do you understand? You guys wanted that lady's tongue earlier, so I want your tongues. It doesn't seem too much, right? Wan Qianling mocked. Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and cut it. If you don't dare to cut it, I'll cut it for you. I love cutting off tongues, especially the tongues of your soul-snatching sect. Wan Qianling, you. Hurry up and cut it. This lady doesn't have that much time to waste on you little rascals. Forget it. Seeing that you don't dare to cut it, this lady will cut it for you. Nie Yunsheng wanted to stop her, but Wan Qianling pulled out her sword and cut out the tongues of the people in front of her. After a few screams, the people from the soul-snatching sect could only lie on the ground and roll. They covered their mouths in pain and could no longer speak. Qianling, Nie Yunsheng walked over with a reproachful expression. How can you do this? Nie Yunsheng knew that Wan Qianling was the demoness of the Falling Flower Palace. It was rumored that she was perverse and cruel. He thought that it was just a rumor. They got along well these days and didn't think that she was really bad. Nie Yunsheng couldn't bear to see what Wan Qianling was doing. He couldn't accept it. Wan Qianling was unhappy. Hey, they threatened to cut off her tongue just now. Is it wrong for me to cut theirs? Chapter 3895. If we hadn't come in time, wouldn't this girl's tongue have been cut off by them? What a pedantic fool. Those people's tongues had been cut off by Wan Qianling's sword. It was meaningless to say anything more. Nie Yunsheng comforted himself that the Soul Snatcher sect was not a good person. Only then did he get over it. But he still said to Wan Qianling, don't do this again. Just teach them a lesson. He could not accept cutting off people's tongues. I'm afraid that the Soul Snatcher sect will not let it go. They will make trouble for you in the future. Be careful. Nie Yunsheng said again. He was very afraid of the Soul Snatcher sect, which liked to play tricks and secretly set people up. Our Falling Flower Palace and them are irreconcilable. It's just old and new hatred. It's me who cut off their tongues, not you. What are you afraid of? You are still... Wan Qianling remembered that Nie Yunsheng wanted to hide his identity, so she did not continue. According to the thoughts of the pedantic people in Jianghu, once Nie Yunsheng's identity was exposed and they knew that he was with her, the demoness of the Falling Flower Palace, they could drown him with just a little spit. The current situation made her very unhappy, and she was in a bad mood. When she saw Su Xinyue standing next to Nie Yunsheng, she was angry and walked over to push Su Xinyue away. Nie Yunsheng did not intend to recognize Su Xinyue. Su Xinyue wanted to continue looking for Nie Yunsheng's whereabouts. After thanking the two, she left. Nie Yunsheng and Wan Qianling continued on their way. When they passed through a forest, they had to stop because their way was blocked. It was a man and a woman who stopped them. Lu Qijian was very famous. Most people in Jianghu knew him. Nie Yunsheng and Wan Qianling both recognized him. Do you want to compete with swords? Wan Qianling asked subconsciously. Lu Qijian stopped them for no reason. They really could not find any reason other than competing with swords. Nie Yunsheng also asked, Young Master Lu, do you really want to compete with swords?
No.
Lu Qijian shook his head. Lu Qijian had indeed thought of finding someone from the Falling Flower Palace to spar, but this person would not be Wan Qianling. With Wan Qianling's kung fu, no matter what swordsmanship she used, it would be full of flaws in front of him. Competing with her in swordsmanship was simply a waste of a spot. In his heart, he thought that if he wanted to compete, he should find the head of the Falling Flower Palace, the palace master of the Falling Flower Palace. However, the Falling Flower Palace did not welcome men, so he could not barge in without permission. The palace master also did not come down from the mountain, so he could not find an opportunity. In Tangwa's memories, the only interaction between Lu Qijian and the Falling Flower Palace was when he challenged the original owner of the body to a sword duel. Unfortunately, every time the original owner went down the mountain, it was to persuade Ruan Qianling. She didn't want to pay attention to Lu Qijian, the sword maniac. She had no interest in a duel of swords. Lu Qijian wasn't the type to force people. If they weren't willing, then so be it. Lu Qijian would never have thought that the person standing beside him was the true body of the Falling Flowers Palace master. Then why did young Master Lu stop us? Under normal circumstances, few people in Jianghu would be called young master. Most people would be called brother, sect master, or senior. There were only a few people who could be called young master. They were all famous. Lu Qijian was young. He was a little older than Nye Yunsheng. In terms of age, he was only one generation older. The other party was a top master. It was disrespectful to call him Brother Lu. It was normal to call him senior, but it was a little old. Over time, people in Jianghu called Lu Qijian Young Master Lu. Some also called him Young Master Seven Swords. Chapter 3896. It was pleasant to hear, easy to remember, and respectful enough. I'm here for you. Lu Qijian said bluntly. Nye Yunsheng, come with me to the Flowing Cloud Villa. Lu Qijian directly pointed out Nye Yunsheng's identity, which surprised the other party. Ruan Qianling was even more surprised. She thought that few people could see through her disguise, but she was seen through by Lu Qijian as soon as she came out, which made her feel a little uncomfortable. How did you know that he was Nye Yunsheng? Ruan Qianling asked impulsively. Lu Qijian said, I guessed it and now I'm sure. Ruan Qianling was so angry that her face turned red. So, he was lying to them? As a result, the two of them really thought that Lu Qijian had seen through them, so they confessed without being pressed. Tangwa pursed her lips and smiled. In the end, the two of them were Jianghu newbies who admitted it after a little bit of embarrassment. If a Jianghu newbie was guessed like this, even if he was flustered, his eyes would be as calm as an ancient well, without any reaction. Nye Yunsheng's face was a little ugly, and he refused Lu Qijian. Child Lu, I have my own plans. When it's time to go to the Flowing Cloud Villa, I will naturally go back. I don't need your help. What plans do you have? After you go back to the Flowing Cloud Villa with me, you can do whatever you want. Now you have to go back with me. In terms of sword competition, Lu Qijian was a very stubborn person. Nye Yunsheng didn't want to go to the Flowing Cloud Villa immediately. He still had a lot of things to figure out. During this time, the Jianghu was very chaotic. He had to figure out who wanted to kill him and target the Flowing Cloud Villa. Child Lu, goodbye. Nye Yunsheng decided to run away, and he winked at Ruan Qianling. Ruan Qianling understood. If she wanted to escape from Lu Qijian, she still needed some special means. Tangwa couldn't be more clear about Ruan Qianling's means. Before the other party made a move, she handed Lu Qijian a handkerchief. Lu Qijian might not be afraid, but it would be troublesome. It was mentioned in the plot that because of Ruan Qianling's help, Nye Yunsheng really slipped away at that time. Ruan Qianling helped him disguise himself again. However, who was Lu Qijian? Not long after, he found her again. Tangwa didn't want to waste her time running with them. She simply handed Lu Qijian a handkerchief, which happened to block the medicine in Ruan Qianling's hand so that they wouldn't be affected. Sure enough, Ruan Qianling sprinkled a lot of powder at Lu Qijian and took the opportunity to escape with Nye Yunsheng. This time, they did not succeed. Lu Qijian used Tangwa's handkerchief to cover his mouth and nose. When Ruan Qianling made a move, he had already noticed it and closed his eyes at the same time. Just as the two of them turned around to flee, he leaped forward and blocked their path with his hearing. Upon seeing this, Ruan Qianling became anxious. This Lu Qijian was really a difficult guy to deal with. She fled in another direction. Unexpectedly, the person standing in this direction was Tangwa. Ruan Qianling couldn't recognize Tangwa. During this period of time, she had heard that there was a lot of talk about a woman in the Jianghu. It was said that she was new to the Jianghu and her surname was Tang. She had some fame because she destroyed the three brothers of the Jiang family. Ruan Qianling didn't think that Tangwa was very powerful. She immediately scolded. If you don't want to die, get out of my way. Tang Guo was unmoved. Wan Qianling attacked her with her red silk. She was extremely fierce. Wan Qianling deserved to be called a demon girl. If it were someone else, facing Wan Qianling's attack, they would definitely avoid it. As a top master in the Jianghu, Tang Guo certainly didn't need to. She felt that Wan Qianling had been in the Jianghu for the past few years and had been smooth sailing. She was really a little arrogant. Chapter 3897. It was a rare opportunity to fight, so she might as well teach the other party a lesson. She immediately unsheathed her sword. Wan Qianling thought that Tang Guo was trying to stop her and wanted to fight with her. She also wanted to teach Tang Guo a lesson and make her suffer. Don't think that just because you are a little famous, you can casually provoke Wan Qianling. Tang Guo saw Wan Qianling's arrogance and didn't say anything. When the red silk attacked her face, she didn't dodge, but raised her sword. The sword was very simple and unadorned. It seemed that there was no skill to speak of. Lu Qijian watched carefully. In order to prevent Nie Yunxing from escaping, he directly hit Nie Yunxing's acupoints. Then he threw Nie Yunxing aside and carefully observed Tang Guo's seemingly empty sword. Looking at the serious energy, it seemed that he didn't want to miss the slightest detail. Wan Qianling was also shocked. She wanted to wave the red silk to dodge, but to her horror, it seemed that there was no way to dodge. No matter where she dodged, the sword would endlessly pursue her. Wan Qianling only thought for a moment. Before she could think of a way to dodge, Tang Guo's sword didn't wait for her and chopped down on the red silk. Wan Qianling shouted, "No!" It was too late. The sword fell on the red silk. It was clearly a gentle stroke, but she heard the sound of the red silk shattering. The luminous pearl shattered. At the same time, the red silk shattered into pieces. Like petals of fiery red flowers, they floated down from the air. It was very beautiful. The powerful sword energy shook Wan Qianling's arm until it was numb. She looked at Tang Guo with a face full of horror. With just one sword, the other party made her unable to fight back. This kind of master was really terrifying. Having been in the Jianghu for several years, Wan Qianling had always done whatever she wanted. For the first time, she felt powerless. It wasn't that she had never met a master, but she had never met a master who couldn't dodge a sword move. A master who could destroy her weapon with just one sword move. Wan Qianling's arm was just numb from the shock, but she didn't suffer any other injuries. But what she experienced now was more uncomfortable than being seriously injured. This blow was simply destroying her self-confidence. It was just a single sword strike. It didn't hurt anyone, but it was enough to destroy her best weapon. What kind of expert could reach such a level? Of course, Wan Qianling was unwilling to accept this. This was the first time she had encountered such a thing. The pride at the bottom of his heart was struck so hard that he could not raise his head. Especially since she had wanted to teach him a lesson just now. Now, she only felt her face burning. "What's your name? I will defeat you one day." Wan Qianling's eyes were burning with a raging fire. "Don't be complacent. You may be able to defeat me today, but you might not be able to tomorrow." Tang Guo put her sword back into its scabbard and said with a faint smile, "Defeat me? Give up. You won't be able to defeat me in this lifetime. Don't be so sure. Wan Qianling, will defeat you one day." Tang Guo was too lazy to say anything to Wan Qianling. The other party was very arrogant. She wasn't afraid that Wan Qianling would practice martial arts seriously from now on. Nie Yunxing couldn't get the 3 treasures of the Falling Flower Palace. It was good that Wan Qianling was stronger. Nie Yunxing was a troublemaker. Without powerful strength and Wan Qianling's protection, he might really court death. If he courted death, then there would be no good show to watch. As for Wan Qianling, she had already been removed from the Falling Flower Palace's list since she woke up. She just had to wait for Wan Qianling to make a mistake and take the initiative to betray the Falling Flower Palace. Then, she would take advantage of the situation. Chapter 3898. It was impossible for Wan Qianling not to make the mistakes in the plot. She was more stubborn than a donkey. The more she was oppressed, the more she resisted. Lu Qijian, let's go. Tangwa said. Lu Qijian nodded and immediately grabbed Nia Yunsheng and put him on the horse. Seeing that Nia Yunsheng was about to be taken away, Wan Qianling shouted, "Where are you taking him? You'd better put him down, or I won't be polite." Tangwa looked back. "You can't win. Why won't you be polite? Don't worry. We won't do anything to him. We'll just take him to Drifting Cloud Villa to receive the award." Wan Qianling knew that she was no match for Tangwa or Lu Qijian, so she could only follow them. Tangwa and Lu Qijian didn't mean to stop her. They didn't take Wan Qianling seriously. Lu Qijian wanted to take Nia Yunsheng to Drifting Cloud Villa so that he could compete with Nia He. Tangwa wanted to receive the award. Was Wan Qianling important? Not at all. Wan Qianling gritted her teeth as she chased after them. During this period, they changed horses several times before they finally arrived at Drifting Cloud Villa. The news that Nia Yunsheng was found by Lu Qijian spread like wildfire. Countless Wulian people beat their chests and stamped their feet. They were very greedy for the reward of Drifting Cloud Villa. If it were someone else, they could still rob him. They were courting death to rob someone from Lu Qijian, the madman. They could only watch Lu Qijian send Nia Yunsheng to Drifting Cloud Villa and do nothing. "Villa head Nia, I've found him for you." Lu Qijian put Nia Yunsheng down and tore off the mask on his face. "He's alive. You can recognize him. Is he child Nia?" The onlookers were really shocked. Lu Qijian's operation was unparalleled. Nia Yunsheng was thrown on the back of a horse all the way. His internal organs were turned over several times. He was very uncomfortable and his face was very pale. When He saw Nia Yunsheng, he was a little surprised. Perhaps he didn't expect that Lu Qijian could find Nia Yunsheng so quickly. "Yunsheng." He reacted quickly. His face lit up with joy as he patted Nia Yunsheng's shoulder. "Yunsheng, where have you been these days? What happened?" "Father." Nia Yunsheng was very unhappy, but he had already come back. Everyone in Jianghu knew that he was still alive, so he had to come back even if he didn't want to. Lu Qijian was unreasonable, so he couldn't take revenge. "Father, this matter is complicated, and there are many suspicious points."
Good.
"It's good that you're back."
Take your time.
He thanked Lu Qijian and asked people to take out some gifts. They were all coldly rejected by Lu Qijian. "You said that you'll have a sword duel with me when you find him." He knew that he couldn't escape this matter, so he readily agreed.
Okay.
"There are still many things to do in the village these days. Let's set another time." "When will the things in the village be settled?" Lu Qijian asked. He wiped his sweat. "The last day of this month. How about it? I'll invite friends from all over the Jianghu to watch and thank you for your hard work these days." It had to be said that He was good at winning people's hearts. Knowing that he couldn't avoid this matter, he simply agreed. It wasn't a bad thing to have a sword duel with Lu Qijian. It wasn't a life and death battle. Treating the people of Jianghu to a meal could appease the unwillingness of those who didn't get the reward. Lu Qijian didn't care about this and immediately agreed. Chapter 3899. When Wan Qianling saw Nia Yunsheng being sent to the Drifting Cloud Villa, she was relieved. She turned her head and began to ponder what method she should use to defeat Tangwa. She still remembered the humiliation she had suffered that day. Wan Qianling was called a witch in Jianghu. It could be seen that her means were not open and above board. She would do whatever she wanted to do without paying too much attention to morality. In her opinion, as long as she could make Tangwa suffer, she would be satisfied. However, Tangwa was too strong. She couldn't find any weakness. During this time, she crazily inquired about Tangwa in Jianghu. Unfortunately, she didn't find anything, so she could only give up. Wan Qianling was currently very interested in Nia Yunsheng. She often sneaked into the Drifting Cloud Villa to see Nia Yunsheng. Su Xingyue came back and pestered Nia Yunsheng all day, which made Wan Qianling angry. Every time she wanted to punish Su Xinhua, she was stopped by Nie Yunsheng in time. The scene of the two women fighting for the man had appeared. Tang Wu was not interested in it. She was looking forward to what would happen next. On the last day of the month, Nie He and Lu Qijian had a sword competition. Jianghu people from all sides came to the Drifting Cloud Villa to watch. After the sword competition, a big event would happen which would lead to a series of contradictions. The day of the sword competition finally arrived. Lu Qijian and Tang Wu went to the Drifting Cloud Villa early in the morning. Jianghu people from all sides came one after another. They hadn't seen the scene of masters fighting for a long time. Lu Qijian had been looking for opponents. At his level, except for the famous people in the big sects, there were few others who could catch his eye. Those who had once competed with Lu Qijian in the Jianghu all had complicated expressions on their faces. It could be said that Lu Qijian had been challenging people everywhere since he was 7 years old. They had seen his rapid progress with their own eyes. They had witnessed a peerless martial artist reach the peak. How could they not have complicated feelings? Can we start now? Lu Qijian appeared to be very anxious. In any case, Nie He was one of the top experts. Nie He nodded when he saw that most of the people were here. The people of Jianghu were more casual. They would fight whenever they wanted. When two experts exchanged blows, the laymen would only cheer while the professionals would sigh at the exquisiteness of their swordsmanship. This was especially true for Lu Qijian, who had fused the 100 schools of sword techniques. Every time he attacked, his sword techniques were different. No one could figure out Lu Qijian's moves. Fortunately, Lu Qijian and Tang Wu were sitting in the VIP seats. "Are you the Miss Tang who crippled the 3 Jiang brothers?" Tang Wu heard a clear and melodious voice. She turned her head and saw a woman dressed in white. She looked elegant and beautiful, like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world. "May I know who you are?" "Luo Lisan." Luo Lisan raised her head and glanced at Lu Qijian, who was sparring with Nie He. Her eyes flashed with infatuation. "I heard that you're very close to 7 Swords?" "System, 7 Swords?" She even called him so intimately. Did she think that she could make the host misunderstand? She was thinking too much. "Does it have anything to do with you?" Tang Wu asked. Luo Lisan frowned slightly and looked a bit proud. "You'd better not have any ideas about 7 Swords. He's not someone you can covet." "So, what does it have to do with you?" Tang Wu asked again. She paused and said, "You like Lu Qijian? But he only likes swords. You don't have a chance. Find someone else. Whether he likes me or not, I will get him." Luo Lisan waved the sword in her hand. "The day I defeat him with my sword, he will be mine." Chapter 3900. Luo Lisan said this with great determination. In fact, she was not confident in defeating Lu Qijian. In front of her rival in love, she could never admit defeat. In terms of momentum, she had to suppress the other party. This woman's surname Tang had stayed by Lu Qijian's side for so long, which gave her a great sense of crisis. Subconsciously, Luo Lisan wanted to drive Tang Wu away and not let her appear by Lu Qijian's side. "You think too much." Lu Qijian is a peerless martial arts talent, especially in the comprehension of swordsmanship. You can't surpass him even if you live another lifetime. Tang Wu's words were arrogant to the extreme, which was very annoying. She was the palace master of Luo Hua Palace, a she-devil. Did she need to be polite? These words really made Luo Lisan angry. Maybe it was because she had the title of the #1 beauty in Wulin and carried the burden of being an idol. She didn't do as she pleased like Wan Qianling, but her eyes became sharper. "So, you won't leave 7 Swords? Whether I leave him or not has nothing to do with you. Who are you? If I leave just because you ask me to leave, I will lose face. If you ask for help, you should have the attitude of asking for help. Don't look down on the commoners. Lu Qijian didn't marry you, and I didn't hear that he liked anyone. There is no promise of marriage between the two of you. Not to mention that you are the #1 beauty in Wulin. Even if you are the #1 beauty in the world, you are not qualified to make me leave." Luo Lisan still wanted to say something, but there was a movement in the arena, and everyone's attention was completely attracted. Niehi said, "I lost. Young Master Lu is indeed young Master Lu. His swordsmanship is invincible. I lost." Niehi's calm manner of admitting it was quite graceful. Looking at the reaction of the people present, his swordsmanship with Lu Qijian didn't affect his reputation much. "Everyone, today I am honored to invite you to watch the swordsmanship between me and young Master Lu. The villa has already prepared some wine. Please help yourselves. Thank you for helping my son. Villa head Nia is really polite."
You are too polite.
Everyone was very satisfied with this banquet. However, just when everyone was feeling satisfied, a voice came from outside the door. "Villa head Nia, your place is very lively. It seems that I came at a bad time today." The person who came in was a skinny middle-aged man with a sage-like demeanor. When the crowd saw him, they began to whisper among themselves. "It's the sect master of the Seven Stars sect, Kong Heyuan. It is said that the last time the Drifting Cloud Mountain Villa received an escort, it was from the Seven Stars sect. I don't know what they were escorting. The Seven Stars sect is looking for trouble. It seems that this matter is not over yet. I don't know how Villa head Nia will deal with this matter. It's been so long and it still hasn't been handled properly. Most likely, Villa head Nia can't provide the escorted items. So it's Sect Master Kong." Nia he greeted, but was interrupted by Kong Heyuan. "Villa head Nia, let's cut the pleasantries. Earlier, I sent someone over to ask about it. You said that after you found young Master Nia, you would give us an explanation. Now that young Master Nia has been found, you should give our seven-star sect an explanation. This lost item, I don't know if it is with young Master Nia?" Kong Heyuan's gaze fell on Nia Yunqing's face. "If it is with young Master Nia, then please return it today. It's best for us to come and take it back ourselves." "This," Nia he muttered. Nia Yunqing opened his mouth and said, "Senior Kong, the person who chased after me that day killed everyone in the villa. He stole the item. I barely escaped with my life, so..." Chapter 30-901. You were the ones who escorted the goods. No matter what happened to you, since the goods were lost, you have to compensate me. I can't let my goods be lost in vain because of what young Master Nia said. Kong Heyuan said, "Besides, why are the people who escorted the goods dead, but young Master Nia is still alive?" According to young Master Nia's description, the other party should be very powerful. To put it bluntly, with young Master Nia's martial arts, you shouldn't be able to escape, right? "Young Master Nia, can you give me an explanation?" Nia Yunqing was still young, so he was a little angry on the spot. He suppressed his anger and said calmly, "At that time, I was seriously injured by the other party and fell off the cliff. The other party thought I was dead, so I was lucky to survive. Forget it, I won't pursue the other matters. As long as Villa head Nia compensates me, it's fine. Villa head Nia should be very clear about what is in the goods. I don't need to say anything more about how to compensate, right?" Nia he said, "Sect head Kong, rest assured. I will find the murderer as soon as possible and find the goods as soon as possible." "Villa head Nia, your words are ridiculous.
You should know how important that thing is.
You said you will find it as soon as possible, but can you really find it?" Kong Heyuan's face sank. "Villa head Nia, that is a treasure map. You said you can find it, but can you guarantee when you will find it?" When Kong Heyuan's words fell, everyone was in an uproar. Treasure map? It was actually a treasure map? Everyone whispered to each other. There was indeed a rumor in Jianghu that there was a treasure map that was divided into several parts and hidden in various places. It was said that if you found the treasure in the treasure map, it would be easy to develop a sect into the #1 sect in Jianghu. It could even last for thousands of years. It was said that there were all kinds of divine weapons and even peerless martial arts inside. What did Jianghu people want to become the most? Of course, it was a peerless master, the kind that no one could defeat. Tangwa could hear the sound of people swallowing their saliva. This thing was very tempting, and almost no one could resist it. Is it really a treasure map? It seems to be true. Otherwise, Why would the people of the Seven Stars sect come here at this time? They probably saw that it was impossible to find the treasure map, so they came to settle accounts with Drifting Cloud Villa. Villa head Nya, you can't blame the Drifting Cloud Manor for what happened during the escort mission. I'm afraid that we won't be able to find the treasure map. Kong Hyun spoke again. I have a compromise here. You should know how valuable the treasure map is. The treasures inside are priceless, but now they are all gone. So, my Seven Stars sect wants half of your Drifting Cloud Mountain Manor. Isn't it too much? As soon as Kong Hyuan's words fell, everyone present felt that he was very shameless. Although the treasure map was precious, if it was only a part of it, it would not be enough to find the treasures. This was simply like trying to gain something without risking anything. Sect Master Kong, aren't you going a little too far?
Yeah, he said.
Villa head Nya, how have I crossed the line? It's obvious that you were careless and lost my Seven Star sex things. Shouldn't you compensate me? Everyone felt that Kong Hyuan was a little shameless, but his words still made some sense. They looked at Nyehi's expression. Drifting Cloud Manor will try our best to find the location of the treasure map. Nyehi repeated his previous words. How about a year? If you can't find it within a year, I will give half of the Drifting Cloud Manor to your Seven Stars sect.
Okay.
Kong Hyuan agreed. He also knew that it was useless to push it. The banquet ended, and everyone left. At this time, people from all sides of Jianghu had already begun to look for the whereabouts of the treasure map. Lu Qijian, do you know the treasure map? Lu Qijian nodded. I've heard of it. After a pause, he said, do you want it? If you want it, I can help you find it. The condition is that you agree to compete with me. System. You deserve to be single for a lifetime. 7 swords. Luo Lisan's voice came from behind. She urged her horse to quickly rush to Lu Qijian's side. I called you just now. Why didn't you hear me? Why didn't you wait for me? After that, she glanced at Tanghua with displeasure. Lu Qijian. I didn't want to wait for you. Her swordsmanship was so bad that he had no interest. Chapter 3902. 7 Swords. Do you think my swordsmanship has improved? Of course, Luo Lisan couldn't get Lu Qijian to spar with her, but she could find someone in Jianghu to spar with her. Lu Qijian wasn't willing to spar, but that didn't mean he wouldn't watch others spar. After all, he had always been looking for an opponent. What if she did it again? Miss Luo, can I leave now? The man who was pulled over by Luo Lisan had a bitter expression. If he knew that he would meet Lu Qijian and Luo Lisan today, he wouldn't have gone out. The next time he went out, he would check the almanac to avoid being dragged over by Luo Lisan, who would want to compete every day. There's nothing for you to do here. You can leave. Luo Lisan casually threw a money bag to the man. The man felt much more comfortable and quickly left with the money bag. Luo Lisan moved closer to Lu Qijian and asked again. 7 Swords, how is my swordsmanship now?
Can I spar with you?
System. Another crazy one, thinking about sparring with swords all day long. Lu Qijian shook his head seriously and said in a light tone, not very good, there are too many tricks. There's no improvement like last time. His words were full of disdain, giving people a feeling of how much time had passed and why she had only improved so little. This made Luo Lisan's face almost crooked from anger. Luo Lisan smiled stiffly, but Lu Qijian ignored her. He turned to Tanghua and said, Miss Tang, come with me to get something. Seeing Tanghua's doubts, he continued, 10,000 gold, antidote pills, and a martial arts manual. I promised you before.
Okay.
Luo Lisan was unhappy and asked, 7 Swords, what is your relationship with her? Why are you giving her these things? Everyone knew that Lu Qijian didn't get close to women and only had eyes for swords. If it was someone else, how could they escape from her hands? She had chased Lu Qijian for many years, but she had never seen him treat any woman with a pleasant expression. Why was he so different to this woman surnamed Tang? 10,000 gold, antidote pills, and a martial arts manual. Which one of these things didn't make people jealous? It sounded so understated, but she felt that something wasn't right. Why did he give it to her out of the blue? Luo Lisan's face suddenly turned pale. Could it be a betrothal gift? She raised her head abruptly to look at the two of them. They had only known each other for a short while, and they were already giving betrothal gifts? Miss Tang's swordsmanship is very exquisite. When Lu Qijian said this, his face was serious, and his eyes were full of praise. He even glanced at Luo Lisan and said, "Even if you practice swordsmanship for a few more decades, you won't be able to reach the level of exquisiteness of her swordsmanship." Luo Lisan was so angry that she was about to vomit blood. She looked as if she couldn't compete with her anyway. Lu Qijian. Tang Gua shook her head gently. With such a low EQ, it was no wonder that he was destined to be a single dog in the plot. System, if you're not a single dog, then you're dirty. Do you still want it?
Hee women.
Luo Lisan tightly pursed her lips and looked at the two people who were leaving. She gritted her teeth and finally followed them. 2 days later, Lu Qijian brought Tang Gua to a shop to meet with someone. The shop owner gave Lu Qijian a bundle. The gold has been exchanged for gold notes, antidote pills, and martial arts manuals are all inside. Lu Qijian said, "Open it and take a look." He stuffed the bundle into Tang Gua's arms. "Also, do you want to compete with swords now?" "I don't want to. Tell me when you want to." System. Lu Qijian didn't have a good time competing with He last time. Chapter 3903. He felt that He did not use his full strength. Even if He did his best, it seemed that he was not his opponent. Thus, Lu Qijian had no interest in He. "No need. You are Lu Qijian. Why would you lie to me?" Tang Gua did not stand on ceremony and accepted the gift. Luo Lisan, who was watching from the side, was very jealous. However, she had asked Tang Gua on the way. This was not a betrothal gift. It was Lu Qijian's compensation for her disgust. This made her feel a little better. During these days of following Tang Gua and Lu Qijian, Luo Lisan had been practicing swordsmanship every day. Although she was talented in martial arts, her understanding of swordsmanship could only be regarded as average. Her progress was slow. After being beaten by Lu Qijian, Luo Lisan especially wanted to compare notes with Tang Gua. She wanted to see if the other party was really as powerful as Lu Qijian said. Other people might not understand, but she understood. Lu Qijian treated Tang Gua differently. She did not know what was different, but her intuition told her that it was very different. "Where are we going next?"
Tang Gua asked.
Lu Qijian took a sip of tea and then said, "To find the treasure map. I asked you before. Do you want the treasure map?" "I don't want it." Tang Gua shook her head. This thing was a hot potato. She, who had read the plot, should say that this was a scam. This was just something that would stir up disputes in the martial arts world. It was not a good thing. She only wanted to watch the fun and did not want to participate in the martial arts world at all. "Is that so?" Lu Qijian's tone was very disappointed. Tang Gua did not want the treasure map. This meant that he could not ask for the treasure map under the condition of a sword competition. "Then why are you still looking for the treasure map?"
Tang Gua asked.
Lu Qijian nodded as he thought of a brilliant idea. His face was filled with joy as he said, "When I get the treasure map, I'll have all the reputable people in Jianghu compete with me in swordsmanship. Whoever wins will get the treasure map." Rumor has it that the treasure map is divided into 3 parts. Lu Qijian was already thinking about how to get all of the treasure maps. Could it be that with 3 treasure maps, everyone in the martial arts world would be willing to compete with me in swords? Tang Gua, Luo Lisan. System. This guy is hopeless. The treasure map that the people of the Jianghu fought so hard for was actually used to attract people to compete with him? This ambition was not something that an ordinary person could understand. "Miss Tang, why don't you come with me so that when you want to compete, you won't have to travel long distances to find me?" Lu Qijian pondered for a moment before saying, "I'll take care of your meals along the way. I'm a bit tired from riding a horse every day. I don't want to run around." Tang Gua declined. System. What do you mean by declining? This is an old habit of yours. You're teasing people again. System. Dear host, your EQ is so low. You're not embarrassed to tease her. It's a waste not to tease her. If I don't tease her, my character will collapse. System. Speechless. Luo Lisin listened from the side and thought to herself, hurry up and go back. Leave Lu Qijian to me. Unexpectedly, when they left the inn the next day, they saw a very luxurious carriage outside. Tang Guo was about to get on the horse when Lu Qijian stopped her. Miss Tang, the carriage, please. Lu Qijian gestured for her to get on. This carriage was arranged by my people. There are many layers of animal skins inside, and the wheels are specially made so that it won't be bumpy. System. I've invested a lot of money. Who is this guy? He said to prepare the carriage, and it came. Is he a hidden tycoon? Is this his desire to live? Chapter 3904. Since you're like this, I really can't refuse. Tang Guo unceremoniously got into the carriage. It was very spacious and could easily accommodate a few people. She lifted the curtain and said, I'll definitely let you know when I want to compete. Lu Qijian's expression became gentler. Okay, there's no hurry. In the future, we'll travel Zhenghu together and can compete at any time. System. Haha, this must be a desire to survive. Luo Lisin anxiously looked at the luxurious carriage and glanced at Lu Qijian. Qijian, I also feel that the ride is very bumpy. Recently, it's been very uncomfortable. Lu Qijian turned back and seriously suggested, then don't ride a horse. If we don't ride a horse, are we going to walk? Luo Lisin asked, we can't walk every day, right? Our feet will be sore and painful. Besides, we can't be outside every day, right? Then go home. Lu Qijian sincerely suggested, it's better to go home. If you're not used to the wind, sun, and rain, it's not suitable to travel Zhenghu. But I just want to travel Zhenghu. Luo Lisin was already gnashing her teeth. He said he would prepare a carriage for Tang Guo, but when it came to her, he told her to go home? Too hateful. Besides, you don't have to ride a horse to travel Zhenghu. You can also take a carriage or something. Didn't you prepare a carriage for Miss Tang? Luo Lisin was very angry. He said it so clearly, could it be that he didn't understand? Lu Qijian thought for a moment and said, that's right, you can go and hire a carriage or two. After saying that, Lu Qijian lifted the curtain of the carriage and went in. Leaving Luo Lisin outside, she looked at his back with a shocked expression. Asking her to hire a carriage. Was this something a human would say? System. Ha 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 ha. How could Luo Lisin like this low EQ person? Most likely, she took a fancy to his sword. Seeing that the carriage was about to be taken away, Luo Lisin stopped it and lifted the curtain. Qijian, I can't hire a carriage for the time being, so I'll take yours. I can't. Lu Qijian refused. There are only 2 seats in the carriage. He motioned for Luo Lisin to see clearly. You can hire one. The Luo family has shops all over the world. It's not like you don't have money. System. Ha ha ha. It's not like you don't have money. Lu Qijian pulled down the curtain with a stream of sword qi. The coachman outside was very tactful and quickly drove the carriage away. Lu Qijian, does your family have a lot of money? Lu Qijian said, not much, but it's enough. Is your family rich or the Luo family rich? Lu Qijian said, it should be my house. We don't have any clues at the moment. How do we find the treasure map? Although Tang Guo knew the plot and knew where 2 of the treasure maps were, she did not know where the remaining treasure map was. Regarding the treasure map, the plot was still rather vague. I know where the treasure map is. Lu Qijian's words surprised Tang Guo a little. There are 3 treasure maps in total. One of them belongs to the 7-star sect, but it has been robbed. The other one is missing, but I know where the last one is. Tang Guo's eyes gradually calmed down. So, with the information from the 2 of them combined, they know the whereabouts of all 3 treasure maps? Where is it? There's one in the Spirit Potion Valley. Lu Qijian said without hesitation. Let's find the other maps first. There's no rush for this one. You can take it at any time. Take it at any time? Is the Spirit Potion Valley your home? Tang Would just said casually, but she didn't expect Lu Qijin to nod. I didn't expect you to guess it. Tanghua. System. The host is doubting life, mainly because Lu Qijin hit it too well. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.